Oh my goodness. It's all right. We're back. We are back. We're back. Come on back in. Come on back in, everybody. Sorry about that. Woo! Oh, I lost you. We're back. Nope, we're back. It's okay. Yep, we're back. I'm good. Sometimes, yeah, we're all right. I know. Nope, we're back. I'm going to wait just a minute here to get you all back. Yes, welcome back. Bad timing. I know. Nope, we're good. I know. No, I'm super careful there. Sorry about that. Nope, we're back. Start from the beginning. No, we're okay. We're back. I'm sorry, everybody. Oh my goodness. Nope, we'll keep going. We'll keep pushing through here. I am super careful about my words, so yep, no, I'm back. Sometimes it's a glitch in the matrix. Yep, nope, we're back. Yep. No, not yet. No, it's not the legs. It wasn't the legs. Well, yeah, I try to be pretty careful. Here. So I know. Nope. We're back. I'm just gonna wait. Oh, thank you. Yes, and she is, and I am just going through the language. So if you want to listen to her really break it down, go for it. It won't hurt my feelings at all. But I am going to go ahead and just read through it. Now that I've got everybody back, let me dive right back in again. Sorry about that. Just making sure everybody was awake. Oh, you got your mind. Awesome. Love that. Oh, all right. Here we go. All right. Let me just make sure. Yes. Yep, we're back. Oh my gosh. Sorry about that, everybody. Are we awake? Good. How many pages? All right. Well, let's get back in here. Should be okay. Yeah. Ouch. All right, let's dive back in. I'm going to pick up right where I was, which was naming these people here, all the defendants, and we're going to go right back in. Unindicted co-conspirators, individual 1 through individual 30. Wow. So we've got another set that have been not named. And others known and unknown to the grand jury constituted a criminal organization whose members and associations engaged in various related criminal activities, including but not limited to false statements and writings, impersonating a public officer, forgery, filing false documents, influencing witnesses, computer theft, computer trespass, computer invasion of privacy, conspiracy to defraud the state, acts involving theft, and perjury. This criminal organization constituted an enterprise, as that term is defined by Georgia Statute 1614-33. That is, a group of individuals associated. In fact, the defendant and other members and associates of the enterprise had connections and relationships with one another and with the enterprise. The enterprise constituted on an ongoing organization whose members and associates functioned as a continuing unit for a common purpose of achieving the objectives of the enterprise. Again, this is all language very specific to the RICO statute. The enterprise operated in Fulton County, Georgia, elsewhere in the state of Georgia, and other states, including but not limited to Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, and in the District of Columbia. The enterprise operated for a period of time sufficient to permit its members and associates to pursue its objectives. Manner and methods of the enterprise. The manner and methods used by the defendants and other members and associates of the enterprise to further the goals of the enterprise and to achieve its purposes included, but were not limited to, the following: false statements to and solicitation of state legislatures, Members of the enterprise, including several of the defendants, appeared at a hearing in Fulton County, Georgia. I'm just going to pause for a minute. Am I in frame okay? Are we in frame all right? I just want to make sure. Yep. Okay. Okay. Good. Just making sure. Before members of the Georgia General Assembly on December 3rd of 2020, December 10th of 2020, and December 30th of 2020. At these hearings, members of the enterprise made false statements concerning fraud in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election. The purpose of these false statements was to persuade Georgia legislators to reject lawful electoral votes cast by the duly elected and qualified presidential electors from Georgia. Members of the enterprise corruptly solicited Georgia legislators instead to unlawfully appoint their own presidential electors for the purpose of casting electoral votes for Donald Trump. Members of the enterprise also made false statements to state legislators during hearings and meetings in Arizona, Michigan, and Pennsylvania in November and December of 2020 to persuade legislators in those states to unlawfully appoint their own presidential electors. False statements to and solicitation of high-ranking state officials. Members of the enterprise, including several of the defendants, made false statements in Fulton County and elsewhere in the states of Georgia to Georgia officials, including the governor, the Secretary of State, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Members of the enterprise also corruptly solicited Georgia officials, including the Secretary of State and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Okay, so the Speaker's involved too. To violate their oaths to the Georgia Constitution and to the United States Constitution by unlawfully changing the outcome of the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia, in favor of Donald Trump. Members of the enterprise also made false statements to and solicited state officials in Arizona, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Okay. Number 3, creation and distribution of false electoral college documents. Members of the enterprise, including several of the defendants, created false electoral college documents and recruited individuals to convene and cast false electoral college votes at the Georgia State Capitol in Fulton County on December 14th of 2020. After the false electoral college votes were cast, members of the enterprise transmitted the votes to the President of the United States Senate, the Archivist of the United States, the Georgia Secretary of State, and the Chief Judge of the United States District Court for the Northern District of Georgia. The false documents were intended to disrupt and delay the joint session of Congress on January 6th of 2021 in order to unlawfully change the outcome of the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in favor of Donald Trump. Similar schemes were executed by members of the enterprise in Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Yep. 4. Harassment and intimidation of Fulton County election worker Ruby Freeman. Oh, I was wondering if she was going to be brought in or not. Good for them bringing that in. Members of the enterprise, including several of the defendants, falsely accused Fulton County election worker Ruby Freeman of committing election crimes in Fulton County, Georgia. These false accusations were repeated to Georgia legislators and other Georgia officials in an effort to persuade them to unlawfully change the outcome of the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in favor of Donald Trump. In furtherance of this scheme, members of the enterprise traveled from out of state to harass Freeman, intimidate her, and solicit her to falsely confess to election crimes that she did not commit. Whoa. Oh, yikes. That's awful. All right, let's break this part. Solicitation of high-ranking United States Department of Justice officials. Members of the enterprise, including several of the defendants, corruptly solicited high-ranking United States Department of Justice officials to make false statements to government officials in Fulton County, Georgia, including the governor, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and the President pro tempore of the Senate. In one instance, Donald Trump stated to the acting United States Attorney General, quote, "Just say that the election was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressmen," end quote. Number 6, solicitation of the Vice President of the United States. Again, they're listing out all of these because only 2 or more need to be found in order to go forward on that RICO situation. Okay, so that's why all of these are being listed. Members of the enterprise, including several of the defendants, corruptly solicited the Vice President of the United States to violate the United States Constitution and federal law by unlawfully rejecting Electoral College votes cast in Fulton County, Georgia, by the duly elected and qualified presidential electors from Georgia. Members of the enterprise also corruptly solicited the Vice President to reject votes cast by the duly elected and qualified presidential electors from several other states. Unlawful breach of election equipment in Georgia and elsewhere. Members of the enterprise, including several of the defendants, corruptly conspired in Fulton County, Georgia, and elsewhere and unlawfully accessed secure voting equipment and voter data. In Georgia, members of the enterprise stole data, Hold on. In Georgia, members of the enterprise stole data, including ballot images, voting equipment software, and personal voter information. The stolen data was then distributed to other members of the enterprise, including members in other states. Whoa, that's a lot. Whoa, I didn't see that one coming. All right, an obstructive acts in furtherance of the conspiracy and the cover-up. Here we go. Making my hands work here. Members of the enterprise, including several of the defendants, made false documents to the government investigators and committed perjury in judicial proceedings in Fulton County, Georgia, and elsewhere in furtherance of and to cover up the conspiracy. Oh my goodness. Okay. For again. Yeah, 17, 18. There's 19. Okay. All right, so we've got RICO here. Here's the manner: false statements and solicitation, false statements to and solicitation of high-ranking state officials. Number 3, creation, distribution of false electoral college documents, harassment and intimidation of Fulton County election worker Ruby Freeman, solicitation of high-ranking United States Department of Justice officials, solicitation of Vice President of the United States, unlawful breach of election equipment in Georgia and elsewhere, obstructive acts in furtherance of the conspiracy and the cover-up. And that takes us to page 20. Okay. All right, here we go. Let me just get everything situated here. All right, acts of racketeering activity and overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. As part of and on behalf of the criminal enterprise detailed above, the defendants, and other members and associates of the enterprise committed overt acts to affect the objectives of the enterprise, including but not limited to Act 1. On or about the 4th day of November of 2020, Donald John Trump made a nationally televised speech falsely declaring victory in the 2020 presidential election. Approximately 4 days earlier, on or about October 31st, he discussed a draft speech with unindicted co-conspirator Individual 1, whose identity is known to the grand jury, that falsely declared victory and falsely claimed voter fraud. That speech was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy, which are the elements required for that. Act 2. On or about the 15th day of November of 2020, Mr. Giuliani placed a telephone call to an unindicted co-conspirator, Individual 2. Whoa. Sorry about that. I'm back. It's going to take me all night. Oh, well, let's see. Let's make up some time in the sky here. Here we go. Place a telephone call to unindicted co-conspirator individual 2, whose identity is known to the grand jury, and left an approximately 83-second long voicemail message for unindicted co-conspirator individual 2, making statements concerning fraud in the November 3rd, 2020 election in Fulton County, Georgia. This telephone call was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 3. On or about the 19th of November, Giuliani, Ellis, Powell, and unindicted co-conspirator 3, whose identity is known to the grand jury, appeared at a press conference at the Republican National Committee headquarters on behalf of Mr. Trump and Trump for President Incorporated, the Trump campaign, and made false statements concerning fraud in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia and elsewhere. These were overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 4. On or about the 20th day of November 2020, Schaefer sent an email to unindicted co-conspirator individual 4, whose identity is known to the grand jury and other individuals. In an email, Schaefer stated that Hall, a Georgia bail bondsman, quote, has been looking into the election on behalf of the president at the request of David Bossie, and asked unindicted co-conspirator individual 4 to exchange contact information with Hall and to, quote, help him as needed, end quote. This is an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 5. Let's just keep it tidy. On or about the 20th day of November 2020, Trump and Meadows met with Majority Leader of the Michigan Senate, Michael Shirkley, Speaker of the Michigan House of Representatives, Lee Chatfield, and other Michigan legislators at the Oval Office in the White House. Trump made false claims concerning fraud in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential elections in Michigan. Giuliani joined the meeting by telephone. This meeting was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 6. On or about the 21st day of November 2020, Meadows sent a text message to United States Representative Perry from Pennsylvania and stated, quote, can you send me the number for the Speaker and the leader of the Pennsylvania legislature? POTUS wants to chat with them. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 7. On or about the 22nd day of November, Trump and Giuliani placed a telephone call to the Speaker of the Arizona House of Representatives, Mr. Bowers. During the telephone call, Giuliani made false statements concerning fraud in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Arizona and solicited, requested, and importuned Bowers to unlawfully appoint presidential electors from Arizona. Bowers declined and later testified to the United States House of Representatives Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol that he told Mr. Trump, I would not break my oath. The false statements and solicitations were overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 8. On or about the 25th day of November, Mr. Giuliani and Ms. Ellis appeared, spoke, and presented witnesses at a meeting of Pennsylvania legislators in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. During the meeting, Giuliani made false statements concerning fraud on the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Pennsylvania and solicited, requested, and importuned the Pennsylvania legislators present at the meeting to unlawfully appoint presidential electors from Pennsylvania. During the meeting, Ellis solicited, requested, and importuned the Pennsylvania legislators present at the meeting to unlawfully appoint presidential electors from Pennsylvania. Trump joined the meeting by telephone, made false statements concerning fraud in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Pennsylvania, and solicited, requested, and importuned the Pennsylvania legislators present at the meeting to unlawfully appoint presidential electors from Pennsylvania. These were overt acts in the furtherance of a conspiracy. Okay, here we go. Again, let's keep it nice and tidy here. Act 9. On or about the 25th day of November of 2020, immediately after the meeting of Pennsylvania legislators in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, where Giuliani, and Ellis appeared, spoke, and presented witnesses, Trump invited a group of Pennsylvania legislators and others to meet with him at the White House. Later that day, Trump, Meadows, Giuliani, Ellis, and unindicted co-conspirators, individual 5 and 6, whose identities are known to the grand jury, met with a group of Pennsylvania legislators at the White House and discussed holding a special session of the Pennsylvania General Assembly. These were overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 10. On or about the 26th day of November of 2020, Giuliani Ellis placed a telephone call to the Speaker of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, Mr. Cutler, and left Cutler a voicemail message for the purpose of soliciting, requesting, and importuning him to unlawfully appoint presidential electors from Pennsylvania. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 11. On or about the 26th of November of 2020, Giuliani placed a telephone call to President pro tempore of Pennsylvania Senate, Jacob J. Corman, for the purpose of soliciting, requesting, and importuning Corman to unlawfully appoint presidential electors from Pennsylvania. This was an overt act in furtherance of conspiracy. Act 12. On or about the 27th day of November of 2020, Giuliani and Ellis placed a telephone call to the Speaker of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, Brian Cutler, and left Cutler a voicemail message for the purpose of soliciting, requesting, importuning him to unlawfully appoint presidential electors from Pennsylvania. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 12. On the 27th day of November, Giuliani and Ellis placed a telephone call to President pro tempore of the Pennsylvania Senate, Mr. Corman, for the purpose of soliciting, requesting, and importuning Corman to unlawfully appoint presidential electors from Pennsylvania. So we've got, just to clarify here, we've got Act 10, Act 11, 12, and 13 are all in asking this man to overturn and to put in new electors, just for clarification purposes here. So each time they asked, they were charged with another act here. All right, on or about the 27th day of November of 2020, Mr. Trump placed a telephone call to President pro tempore of Pennsylvania Senate, Mr. Corman, for the purpose of soliciting, requesting, importing Corman to unlawfully appoint presidential electors from Pennsylvania. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. So we have another act asking the Pennsylvania guy. On the 28th of November, Giuliani placed a telephone call to the Speaker of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, Mr. Cutler, and left Cutler a voice message for the purposes of soliciting, requesting, and importuning him to unlawfully appoint. Another one, Act 16, on the 29th. So every single day, just over and over and over again. Giuliani placed a telephone call to the Speaker of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, Mr. Cutler, and left him a voice message for the purpose of soliciting, requesting, importing him to unlawfully appoint presidential electors from Pennsylvania. Another overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 17. On or about the 30th day of November 2020, Giuliani and Ellis appeared, spoke, and presented witnesses at a meeting of Arizona legislators in Phoenix, Arizona. Unindicted co-conspirators, individual 5 and 6, whose identities are known to the grand jury, were also present. During the meeting, Giuliani made false statements concerning fraud, importuned the Arizona legislatures present at the meeting to unlawfully appoint presidential electors for Arizona. During the meeting, Ellis solicited, requested, importuned the Arizona legislators present at the meeting to unlawfully appoint presidential electors to Arizona from Arizona. Yikes. Trump joined the meeting by telephone and made false statements concerning fraud for the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Arizona. These were overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 18. On or about the 30th day of November, Roman instructed unindicted co-conspirator individual 7, whose identity is known to the grand jury, to coordinate with the individuals associated with Trump's campaign to contact state legislators in Georgia and elsewhere on behalf of Mr. Trump and to encourage them to unlawfully appoint presidential electors from their respective states. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Wow, we've got a lot of acts here. Again, we need 2 or more in order to go forward with the RICO. I just want to make sure I'm in frame here. Yes, please feel free. It won't bother me one bit. Please go on if you would like to see her talk. That's absolutely fine. I am just going through the language itself. Yep. Let me take a drink here and I will go on. Okay, here we go. Act 19. Honor before or honor between the first day of December of 2020 and the 31st day of December 2020, Trump and Meadows met with John McEntee and requested McEntee prepare a memorandum outlining a strategy for disrupting and delaying, the joint session of Congress. Yikes, that's not good. Don't do that. On January 6th of 2021, the day prescribed by law for counting votes cast by the duly elected and qualified presidential electors from Georgia and the other states. The strategy included having Vice President Pence count only half of the electoral votes from certain states and then return the remaining electoral votes to state legislatures. The request was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 20. On or about the first day of December 2020, Giuliani Ellis met with the Speaker of the Arizona House of Representatives, Rusty Bowers, President of the Arizona Senate, Karen Fann, and other Arizona legislators in Phoenix, Arizona. Unindicted co-conspirator individual 5, whose identity is known to the grand jury, was also present. During the meeting, Giuliani made false statements concerning fraud in the November 30th, 2020 presidential election in Arizona and solicited, requested, and importuned the legislators present to call a special session of the Arizona State Legislature. These were overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 21. On or about the second day of December, Giuliani and Ellis appeared, spoke, and presented witnesses at a meeting at the Michigan House of Representatives Oversight Committee. During the meeting, Giuliani made false statements concerning fraud in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Michigan and solicited, requested, and importuned the Michigan legislators present at the meeting to unlawfully appoint presidential electors from Michigan. During the meeting, Ellis solicited, requested, and importuned the Michigan legislators present at the meeting to unlawfully appoint presidential electors from Michigan. These were overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 22. On the third day of December of 2020, Mr. Trump caused to be tweeted from the Twitter account at Real Donald Trump, quote, Georgia hearings now on at OANN, amazing. This is an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Whew. That's a lot. All right, on or about the third day of December of 2020, Giuliani, Eastman, Ellis, Smith III committed the felony offense of solicitation of violation of oath by public officer in violation of Georgia Statute 16-4-7 and 16-10-1 in Fulton County, Georgia, by unlawfully soliciting, requesting, and importuning certain public officers then serving as elected members of the Georgia Senate and present at the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee meeting, including unindicted co-conspirator individual 8, whose identity is known to the grand jury. Senators Lee Anderson, Brandon Beach, Matt Brass, Greg Dolezal, Steve Gooch, Tyler Harper, Bill Heath, Jen Jordan, John F. Kennedy, William Ligon, Elena Parent, Michael Rett, Cardin Summers, and Blake Tillery to engage in conduct constituting the felony offense of a violation of oath of public office by unlawfully appointing presidential electors from Georgia in willful and intentional violation of the terms of the oath of said person as prescribed by law, with intent that said persons engage in said conduct. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 24. On or about the third day of December, Giuliani committed felony offenses, false statements, and writings in violation of this code section in Fulton County, Georgia, by knowingly, willfully, and unlawfully making it at least one of the following false statements and representations to members of the Georgia Senate present at the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee meeting. I had wondered if he was going to get charged with that, and he did. He did. That at least 96,600 mail-in ballots were counted in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia, despite there being no record of those ballots having been returned to a county elections office. Number 2, the Dominion voting systems equipment used in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Antrim County, Michigan, mistakenly recorded 6,000 votes for Joseph R. Biden when the votes were actually cast for Donald John Trump. Said statements being within the jurisdiction of the Office of the Georgia Secretary of State and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, departments and agencies of state government, and county and city law enforcement agencies. This is an act of racketeering under Georgia Statute Section 16-14-3 and an overt act in furtherance of a conspiracy. That's a pretty big moment. All right, Act 25, 26, 27. I'm just checking to make sure I'm in frame here. Just one moment. I need to reset my battery up here. Okay, thank you. Here we go. Thank you everyone for joining me tonight. I am going through the Georgia indictment, just came down here. Right now we're going through the RICO charge that was set out and we're on Act 25. I am just reading through this indictment. Yes, please be respectful of my moderators that are working so incredibly hard tonight. Thank you very much. Feel free to scroll on by if you're not interested. That's absolutely fine. This live has been put in so that we have 18 and older here. So everyone is 18 or older. Just to make sure. Thank you very much. And thank you again kindly so much for my moderators working very hard. Thank you, thank you. All right, let's get back into it. All right, on or about the third day of December of 2020, Smith committed the felony offense of false statements and writings in violation of this code section in Fulton County, Georgia, by knowingly, willfully, and unlawfully making at least one of the following false statements and representations to members of the Georgia Senate present at the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee meeting. 1. That 2,506 felons voted illegally in the November 3rd presidential election in Georgia. 2. That 66,248 underage people illegally registered to vote before their 17th birthday prior to the November 3rd presidential election in Georgia. 3. That at least 2,423 people voted in the November 3rd presidential election in Georgia who were not listed as registered to vote. 4. That 1,043 people voted in the November 3rd presidential election in Georgia who had illegally registered to vote using a post office box. 5. That 10,315 or more dead people voted in November 3rd presidential election in Georgia. 6. That the Fulton County election workers at the State Farm Arena ordered poll watchers and members of the media to leave the tabulation area on the night of November 3rd of 2020 and continued to operate after ordering everyone to leave. Said statements being within the jurisdiction of the Office of the Georgia Secretary of State and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, departments and agencies of state government, and county and city law enforcement agencies. This was an act of racketeering under this section of the code and an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 26. On or about the third day of December of 2020, Mr. Trump caused to be tweeted from the Twitter account at Real Donald Trump, quote, "Wow, blockbuster testimony taking place right now in Georgia. Ballot stuffing by Dems when Republicans were forced to leave the large counting rooms. Plenty more coming, but this alone leads to an easy win for the state," end quote. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 27. On or about the third day of December of 2020, Donald J. Trump caused to be tweeted from the Twitter account at Real Donald Trump. People in Georgia got caught cold, bringing in massive numbers of ballots, putting them in voting machines. Great job. At Brian Kemp, GA. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. So that takes us then to the next page here. On or about the 3rd day of December 2020, Mr. Trump met with Speaker of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, Brian Cutler, in the Oval Office at the White House, and discussed holding a special session of the Pennsylvania General Assembly. This was another overt act. Act 29, on or between the 3rd day of December of 2020, the 26th day of December 2020, Mr. Giuliani placed a telephone call to President pro tempore of Georgia Senate Cecil Terrell Butch Miller for the purpose of making false statements concerning fraud on November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 30, on or about the 3rd of December 2020 and the 26th of December of 2020, Mr. Trump placed a telephone call to the President pro tempore of the Georgia Senate Butch Miller. This was an overt act in furtherance. Act 31, on or about the 5th day of December, Mr. Trump placed a telephone call to the Georgia Governor Brian Kemp and requested and importuned Kemp to call a special session of the Georgia General Assembly. Another overt act in furtherance. Act 32, on or about the 6th day of December of 2020, Mr. Trump caused to be tweeted from the Twitter account at Real Donald Trump. Gee, what a surprise. Has anyone informed the so-called, says he has no power to do anything, governor and his puppet, lieutenant governor, that they could easily solve this mess and win signature verification and call a special session? So easy. And then here's a website. This was an overt act in furtherance. Act 33, on or about the 6th day of December of 2020, Ms. Powell entered into a written engagement agreement with Sullivan Strickler LLC, a forensic data firm located in Fulton County, Georgia, for the performance of computer forensic collections and analytics on Dominion voting system equipment in Michigan and elsewhere. The unlawful breach of the election equipment in the Coffee County, Georgia, was subsequently performed under this agreement. Whoa. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Oh, I'd like to see that. Right, here we go. Just keeping it tidy. On or about the 6th day of December of 2020, Chile sent an email to Eastman, unindicted co-conspirator 8, whose identity is known to the grand jury, and Georgia Senator Brandon Beach, that stated, quote, I'm working on setting up a call for you with the Speaker and the President pro tempore tomorrow. I'm also making the leadership aware of the importance for Trump electors to meet on December 14th. Please provide the citation to the requirements of duties which they must comply with. This was an overt act in furtherance. Act 35. On or about the 6th of December of 2020, Eastman sent an email to Chile, unindicted co-conspirator individual 8, whose identity is known to the grand jury, and the Georgia Senator Brandon Beach, that stated that Trump presidential elector nominees in Georgia needed to meet on December 14th, sign 6 sets of certificates of vote, and mail them to the President of the Senate and to other officials. Another overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Just pausing for a moment. Please be respectful of my mods. Thank you very much. Absolutely working their fingers so hard tonight. Would really appreciate it if everyone would be respectful. Appreciate that. Okay. Thank you. And if you are not interested, please just pass on, go on by. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, please feel free to scroll on by if you're not interested. That's no problem. That will not bother me at all. Not one bit. All right, here we go. On or about the 6th day of December, Mr. Chile sent an email to an unindicted co-conspirator, individual 2, whose identity is known to the grand jury, that stated he's been speaking with Eastman and was attempting to set up a call with the Speaker of the Georgia House of Representatives, Mr. Ralston, and President pro tempore of the Georgia Senate, Butch Miller, to encourage them to call a special session of the Georgia General Assembly. In the email, Chile stated, quote, Professor Eastman told me tonight that it's critical that 16 electors for President Trump meet next Monday and vote in accordance with 3 U.S.C. Section 7. In the email, Chile further stated, quote, I assume you can make sure this happens. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 37. On or about the 7th day of December of 2020, unindicted co-conspirator individual 2, whose identity is known to the grand jury, sent an email to Chile Ann Schaefer and stated, quote, "Bob, can you get on a call with David Schaefer, state GOP chair, I later this morning to discuss. David has been on top of a lot of efforts in the state. I get off of a board call around 10:30, end quote. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. And here we go. All right. Act 38. On or about the 7th day of December of 2020, Giuliani caused to be tweeted from the Twitter account Rudy Giuliani a retweet of an unindicted co-conspirator individual 8, whose identity is known to the grand jury, that stated, "Georgia Patriot call to action. Today is the day we need you to call your state Senate or House rep and ask them to sign the petition for a special session. We must have free and fair elections in Georgia. And this is our only path to ensuring every legal vote is counted at real Donald Trump," end quote. This was an overt act in furtherance. Act 39. On or about the 7th day of December of 2020, Eastman sent an email to Giuliani with an attached memorandum titled, "The Real Deadline for Setting the State's Electoral Votes." The body of the email stated, quote, "Here's the memo we discussed," end quote. The memorandum was written by Cheeseborough to Troupis, an attorney associated with the Trump campaign and advocates for the position that Trump presidential elector nominees in Wisconsin should meet and cast electoral votes for Mr. Trump. On December 14th of 2020, despite the fact that Donald J. Trump lost the November 3rd presidential election in Wisconsin, this email was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 40. On or about the 7th day of December of 2020, Mr. Trump requested that Bill White, an individual associated with the Trump campaign then residing in Fulton County, Georgia, provide him with a certain information, including contact information for Majority Leader of the Georgia Senate, Mike Dugan, and President pro tempore of the Georgia Senate, Butch Miller. The following day, White sent an email containing the requested information to Giuliani, unindicted co-conspirator individual 5, whose identity is known to the grand jury and others. This request was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 41. On or about the 7th day of December, Mr. Giuliani placed a telephone call to the Speaker of the Georgia House of Representatives, David Ralston, and discussed holding a special session of the Georgia General Assembly. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Okay, here we go. Act 42. On or about the 7th day of December 2020, Mr. Trump committed the felony offense solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer in violation of this section of the code in Fulton County, Georgia, by unlawfully soliciting, requesting, and importuning Speaker of the Georgia House of Representatives, David Ralston, a public officer, to engage in conduct constituting the felony offense of violation of oath by a public officer, by calling a special session of the Georgia General Assembly for the purpose of unlawfully appointing presidential electors from Georgia, in willfully and intentional violation of the terms of the oath of said person as prescribed by law, with the intent that said person engage in said conduct. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 43. On or about the 8th day of December, Mr. Trump placed a telephone call to Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr for the purpose of making false statements concerning fraud in the November presidential election in Georgia and elsewhere. During the telephone call, Mr. Trump asked Carr not to discourage other state attorney generals from joining a federal lawsuit filed by the state of Texas contesting the administration of the November presidential election in Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 44. On or about the 8th day of December of 2020, Mr. Trump and Mr. Eastman placed a telephone call to the Republican National Committee chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel, to request her assistance, gathering certain individuals to meet and cast electoral votes for Mr. Trump on December 14th. In certain states, despite the fact that Donald Trump lost the November 3rd presidential election in those states, this was an overt act in furtherance. Act 45. On or about the 8th day of December, Mr. Roman sent a text message to unindicted co-conspirator individual 4, whose identity is known to the grand jury, stated he had spoken to Misty Hampton and asked unindicted co-conspirator individual 4 to get Misty Hampton to attend the hearing before the Georgia House Representatives Government Affairs Committee on December 10th. This was an overt act in furtherance. On or about the 9th day of December of 2020, Cheeseborough wrote a memorandum titled Statutory Requirements for December 14th Electoral Votes to James R. Trupus, an attorney associated with the Trump campaign. The memorandum provided detailed state-specific instruction for how Trump presidential elector nominees in Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin would meet and cast electoral votes for Mr. Trump on December 14th, despite the fact that Mr. Trump had lost the November 3rd presidential election in those states. This was an overt act. Act 47. On or about the 10th day of December, Cheeseborough sent an email to Georgia Republican Party Chairman Schaefer and an unidentified co-conspirator, Individual 9, whose identity is known to the grand jury. Cheeseborough stated in the email that certain individuals associated with the Trump campaign asked him, quote, to help coordinate with the other 5 contested states to help with logistics of the electors in the states, hopefully joining and casting their votes on Monday, end quote. This was an overt act in furtherance. Act 48. On or about the 10th day of December of 2020, Cheeseborough sent an email and attached documents to Mr. Schaefer and unindicted co-conspirator Individual 9 and 10 and 11, whose identities are known by the grand jury. The documents were used by Trump presidential elector nominees in Georgia for the purpose of casting electoral votes for Mr. Trump on December 14th, despite the fact that Mr. Trump had lost the November 3rd presidential election in Georgia. This was an overt act. Act 49. On or about the 10th day of December, Cheeseborough sent an email with an attached document to the Arizona Republican Party Executive Director, Greg Safston, and others. The documents were used by Trump presidential elector nominees in Arizona for the purpose of casting electoral votes for Mr. Trump on December 14th of 2020, despite the fact that Mr. Trump had lost the election in November. This was an overt act in furtherance. Yes, feel free to pull those comments off the screen if it's distracting for you. Thank you so much, VC, for your very, very hard work. I'm so thankful to you. Let's take a peek. Should we peek into the future and see? Let's see how many acts we have. Oh, not too many. 112. It's not too many, right? On or about the 10th day of December of 2020, Mr. Cheeseborough sent an email to the Republican Party of Wisconsin Chairman Brian Schimming with proposed language for documents to be used by Trump's presidential elector nominees in Wisconsin for the purpose of casting electoral votes for Donald J. Trump on December 14th, despite the fact that he had lost the election. This was an overt act. I will be skimming just a little bit because we do have a few more to get through, so I will kind of skim through some of that same language. But Act 51, on or about the 10th day of December, Cheeseborough sent an email to the Nevada Republican Party Vice Chairman, Jim DeGraffenreid. Mr. Cheeseborough stated in the email that Mr. Giuliani and other individuals associated with the Trump campaign asked him to, quote, reach out to you and other Nevada electors to run point on the plan to have all Trump-Pence electors in all 6 contested states meet and transmit their votes to Congress on Monday, December 14th. This was an overt act. Act 52. On or about the 10th day of December, Mr. Cheeseborough sent an email with an attached document to Jim, this guy. The documents were to be used by Trump presidential elector nominees in Nevada for the purpose of casting electoral votes for Mr. Trump on December 14th, despite the fact that he had lost the November 3rd presidential election. This was an overt act in furtherance. Act 52. On or about the 10th day of December, Mr. Cheeseborough sent an email and an attached document to the Republican Party of the Pennsylvania General Counsel, Thomas W. King III. The documents were to be used by Trump's presidential elector nominees in Pennsylvania for the purpose of casting electoral votes for Mr. Trump on December 14th, despite the fact that Mr. Trump had lost the November 3rd presidential election in Pennsylvania. This was an overt act in furtherance. Act 54. On or about the 10th day of December of 2020 and the 14th day of December of 2020, Mr. Schaefer contacted unindicted co-conspirator individual 2, whose identity is known to the grand jury, by telephone and discussed unindicted co-conspirator individual 2's attendance at the December 14th meeting of Trump's presidential elector nominees in Fulton County, Georgia. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Oop. Act 55. On or about the 10th day of December of 2020, Mr. Giuliani, Mr. Smith III, committed the felony offense of solicitation of violation of oath by public officers in violation of this code in Fulton County, Georgia, by unlawfully soliciting, requesting, and importuning certain public officers then serving as elected members of the Georgia House of Representatives and present at the House Governmental Affairs Committee meeting, including Representatives Shaw Blackman, John Burns, Barry Fleming, Todd Jones, B. Nugent, Mary Margaret Oliver, Alan Powell, Renita Shannon, Robert Tremmel, Scott Turner, and Bruce Williamson to engage in conduct constituting the felony offense of violation of an oath by public officer by unlawfully appointing presidential electors from Georgia in willful and intentional violation of the terms of the oath of said persons as prescribed by law, with the intent that persons engage in said conduct. This was an overt act in furtherance. Act 56. Okay, now we're getting into some more detailed descriptions of acts here. On or about the 10th day of December of 2020, Giuliani committed the felony offense of false statements and writings in violation of this code of Fulton County, Georgia, by knowingly, willfully, and unlawfully making at least one of the following false statements and representations to members of the Georgia House of Representatives present at the House Government Affairs Committee meeting. Number 1, that it was quite clear from the State Farm Arena video from November 3rd that Fulton County election workers were stealing votes and that Georgia officials were covering up a crime in plain sight. Number 2, that at State Farm Arena on November 3rd of 2020, Democratic officials got rid of all of the reporters, all of the observers, anyone that could be trusted, end quote, used the excuse of a water main break, cleared out the voting area, and then, quote, went about their dirty, crooked business, end quote. Dirty and crooked business. Wow. Number 3, that between 12,000 and 24,000 ballots were illegally counted by Fulton County election workers at the State Farm Arena on November 3rd of 2020. That in Michigan, there were 700,000 more ballots counted than were sent out to voters in November 3rd of 2020 presidential election, which was accounted for by quadruple counting ballots. Number 5, the Ruby Freeman, Shay Moss, and an unidentified man were, quote, quite obviously surreptitiously passing around USB ports as if they're vials of these kinds of things and at State Farm Arena to be used to infiltrate the crooked Dominion voting machines, end quote. Number 6, the 96,600 mail-in ballots were counted in November 3rd of 2020 presidential election in Georgia, despite there being no record of these ballots having been returned to county elections office. Said statements being within the jurisdiction of the Office of the Georgia Secretary of State and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, departments and agencies of state government, and county and city law enforcement agencies. This was an act of racketeering, a violation of this section of the code, and an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Okay, here we go. On or about the 11th day of December of 2020, Mr. Schaefer reserved room 216 at the Georgia State Capitol in Fulton County, Georgia, for the December 14th meeting of Trump presidential elector nominees in Fulton County, Georgia. This was an overt act in furtherance. Act 58. On or about the 11th day of December, Mr. Cheesebro sent an email to this guy, Mr. Jim, and stated that, quote, the purpose of having the electoral votes sent in to Congress is to provide the opportunity to debate the election. Whoa, irregularities in Congress. Well, that's not true at all. Sorry, that bit was shocking. And to keep alive the possibility that the votes could be flipped to Trump, end quote. This was an overt act. 59. On or about the 11th date of December of 2020, Cheeseborough sent an email with attached documents to Greg Safston and others. These documents were used by Trump presidential elector nominees in Arizona for the purpose of casting electoral votes for Mr. Trump on December 14th, despite the fact that Mr. Trump had lost in November 3rd, the presidential election in Arizona. This was an overt act. Act 60. On the 11th day of December, Cheeseborough sent an email with attached documents to Roman and other individuals associated with the Trump campaign. These documents were used by Trump presidential elector nominees in Nevada for the purpose of casting electoral votes for Mr. Trump on December 14th, despite the fact that Mr. Trump had lost the November 3rd presidential election in Nevada. This was an overt act in furtherance. Act 61. On or about the 11th day of December, Mr. Cheeseborough sent an email and attached documents to Mr. Roman, unindicted co-conspirator Individual 5, whose identity is known to the grand jury and others. The documents were to be used by Trump presidential elector nominees in Georgia for the purpose of casting electoral votes for Mr. Trump on December 14th, despite the fact that Mr. Trump had lost the November 3rd presidential election in Georgia. This was an overt act. Thank you. Thank you for the reminder. One moment, please. Oh, goodness. Thanks for looking after me, Daisy. Appreciate it. Oh, goodness. All right, where was I now? Where was I? Was I on 58? Was I? Let's all hydrate. Yes. Hydration's important. Oh no, the First Amendment is safe and well within the Constitution. 61. Okay. That's how we're at. Oh, next page. Oh my gosh. Okay. Let's go into you're done with this page. All right, thank you so much. All right, flipping to page. Oh, what would I do without you? Thank you. Does wine hydrate? I'm not sure legally, but all right, here we go. Yes. That's a good question. There were 30 other people that were unlisted that were also part of the co-conspirators. I was Rosie. I was so in the zone. I could have built a whole addition onto my bedroom here. Oh, all right, here we go. Act 62. On or about the 12th day of December of 2020, Mr. Schaefer contacted unindicted co-conspirator Individual 12, whose identity is known to the grand jury, and discussed unindicted co-conspirator Individual 12's attendance at the December 14th meeting of Trump's presidential elector nominees in Fulton County, Georgia. Another overt act, Act 63. On or about the 12th day of December of 2020, Mr. Roman sent an email to an unindicted co-conspirator, Individual 4 and Individual 7, whose identities are known to the grand jury and other individuals associated with the Trump campaign. In an email, Mr. Roman stated, quote, "I need a tracker for the electors," end quote, and instructed individuals associated with the Trump campaign to populate entries on a shared spreadsheet listing Trump presidential elector nominees in Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. These entries on the spreadsheet included contact information for the Trump presidential elector nominees, whether the Trump presidential elector nominees had been contacted, and whether the Trump presidential elector nominees had confirmed that they would attend the December 14th meetings of Trump presidential elector nominees in their respective states, despite the fact that Mr. Trump had lost the November 3rd presidential election. Ugh. All right. We've got, Yep. Keep going. Yeah, this is how you go forward on the RICO charge. That's what makes RICO so special. Act 64. On or about the 12th day, Mr. Cheeseborough met with Mr. Shimming and discussed the December 14th meeting of the Trump presidential elector nominees in Wisconsin. Mr. Giuliani joined the meeting by telephone, stated that the media would not be notified of the December 14th meeting of Trump presidential election nominees in Wisconsin. Another overt act. Act 65. On or about the 12th day, Mr. Roman instructed an individual associated with the Trump campaign to distribute certain information related to the December 14th meeting of Trump presidential elector nominees in Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin to unindicted co-conspirator individual 4, whose identity is known to the grand jury, and to other individuals. This was another overt act. Don't be rude to my moderators, please. They're working very, very hard. Yes, thank you, mods. You're amazing. Act 66, on or about the 12th of December, unindicted co-conspirator individual 4, whose identity is known to the grand jury, sent an email to Roman and Schaefer with an update on the progress of organizing the December 14th meeting of Trump presidential elector nominees in Fulton County, Georgia. The email stated which elector nominees had confirmed they would attend the meeting, that other individuals had been secured in the case some of the elector nominees refused to participate in the meeting, that Georgia legislators had been contacted to ensure access to the Georgia Capitol, and that Mr. Schaefer had reserved room 216 for the meeting. Another act. Act 67. On the 12th day of December, Mr. Schaefer sent an email to unindicted co-conspirator individual 4, whose identity is known to the grand jury, advising them to, quote, touch base with each other on the Trump presidential elector nominees in Georgia in advance of the December 14th of 2020 meeting to confirm their attendance. This was another act. Act 64, on or about the 12th day of December, unindicted co-conspirator individual 4, whose identity is known to the grand jury, sent a text message with contact information for unindicted co-conspirator individual 8, whose identity is unknown to the grand jury, and the Georgia Senator Brandon Beach to Mr. Roman for the purpose of providing the contact information to Mr. Giuliani. This was another overt act. Act 69, on or about the 13th day of December, Mr. Cheesebro sent an email with an attached document to Mr. Roman. The documents were to be used by Trump presidential elector nominees in New Mexico for the purpose of casting electoral votes for Mr. Trump on December 14th, despite the fact that Mr. Trump lost the November 3rd election in New Mexico. This was another overt act. All right, we're coming down here to the last few rows. Let's go. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All right, on or about the 13th day of December, Mr. Cheesebro sent an email to Mr. Giuliani with the subject, quote, privileged and confidential. Not anymore. Brief notes on President of the Senate strategy. In the email, Mr. Cheesebro outlined the multiple strategies for disrupting and delaying the joint session of Congress on January 6th, the day prescribed by the law for counting the votes cast by the duly elected and qualified presidential electors from Georgia and other states. In the email, Cheesebro stated that the strategies outlined by him were, quote, preferable to allowing the Electoral Count Act to operate by its terms. Ooh, end quote. Act 71. On or about the 13th day, Mr. Cheesebro sent an email with attached documents to Mr. Roman and unindicted co-conspirator individual 4, whose identity is known to the grand jury. The documents were to be used by Trump presidential elector nominees in Georgia for the purpose of casting electoral votes for Mr. Trump on December 14th, despite the fact that Mr. Trump had lost the November 3rd presidential election in Georgia. Act 72. On or about the 13th day of December, Mr. Cheesebro sent an email to Mr. Roman and indicted co-conspirator individual 4, whose identity is known to the grand jury, and stated that Mr. Giuliani, quote, wants to keep this quiet until after all the voting is done, end quote, in reference to the December 14th meeting of Trump presidential elector nominees in Fulton County, Georgia. Act 73. On or about the 13th day of December of 2020, Mr. Schaefer sent a text message to unindicted co-conspirator individual 4, whose identity is known to the grand jury, and stated that unindicted co-conspirator individual 8, whose identity is known to the grand jury, would attend the December 14th meeting of Trump presidential elector nominees in Fulton County, Georgia, in the place of a Trump presidential elector nominee who refused to participate in the meeting. This was another overt act. Oh, yikes. All right, here we go. On or about the 13th day of December of 2020, unindicted co-conspirator individual 9, whose identity is known to the grand jury, sent a text message to Mr. Schaefer and confirmed that he and unindicted co-conspirator individual 13, whose identity is known to the grand jury, would attend the December 14th meeting of Trump presidential elector nominees in Fulton County, Georgia. Act 75. On or about the 14th day of December, Mr. Trump caused to be tweeted from the Twitter account at Real Donald Trump. An overt act. Yes. Hold on. Let me make sure I remember where I'm at. An overt act is the language that's required in the law. It's saying that it has to be something that's clearly done. So it's just, we're not talking about something that was like maybe implied or, I'm thinking about doing it. It's like it's clearly a specified act that's been done. Yep. Blatant. Thank you, KJ. Thank you very much. Exactly. Blatant. Yep. What a quote. What a fool Governor Brian Kemp, of Georgia is. Could have been so easy, but now we have to do it the hard way. Demand this clown call a special session and open up signature verification now. Otherwise, could be a bad day for two great senators on January 5th. Ouch, that's not nice. End quote. Another overt act. Act 76. On or about the 14th day, Mr. Schaefer sent a text message to an unindicted co-conspirator, individual 4, whose identity is known to the grand jury, and stated, quote, "Listen, tell them to go straight to room 216 to avoid drawing attention to what we are doing," end quote. Well, that's suspicious. Oh, my goodness. In reference to the December 14th meeting of Trump presidential elector nominees in Fulton County, Georgia. Act 77. On or about the 14th day of December, Mr. Roman sent an email to unindicted co-conspirator individual 4 and individual 7, whose identities are known to the grand jury, and stated, quote, "Please send me an update as soon as the state electoral college has adjourned and all paperwork is secured," end quote. End quote. Another act. Act 78. On or about the 14th day of December, Mr. Smith III and Mr. Schaefer encouraged certain individuals present at the December 14th meeting of Trump presidential elector nominees in Fulton County, Georgia, to sign the document titled, quote, "Certificate of the Votes of the 2020 Electors from Georgia," end quote. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. And here we go. Act 79, Act 80. On or about the 14th day of December 2020, Mr. Schaefer, Mr. Still, Mr. Latham, and an unindicted co-conspirator, individual 2, individual 8, individual 9, individual 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, dang, whose identities are known to the grand jury, committed the felony offense of impersonating a public officer. Whoa, my goodness. In violation of this section of the code in Fulton County, Georgia, by unlawfully, falsely holding themselves out as duly elected and qualified presidential electors from the state of Georgia, public officers with the intent to mislead the President of the United States Senate, the Archivist of the United States, and the Georgia Secretary of State, and the Chief Judge of the United States District Court for the Northern District of Georgia into believing that they were actually such officers by placing in the United States mail to said persons a document titled, quote, "Certificate of the Votes of the 2020 Electors from Georgia," end quote. This was an act of racketeering activity and an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 80. Yeah, that's pretty bad. On or about the 14th day of December 2020, Mr. Schaefer, Mr. Still, Ms. Latham, and unindicted co-conspirator individual 2, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, whose identities are known to the grand jury, committed the felony offense of forgery in the first degree in Fulton County, Georgia, with the intent to defraud and knowingly making a document titled, quote, "Certificate of the Votes of the 2020 Electors from Georgia," a writing other than a check in such a manner that the writing as made purports to have been made by the authority of the duly elected and qualified presidential electors from the state of Georgia, who did not give such authority and uttered and delivered said document to the archivist of the United States. Ooh, that's bad. That's not very good. This was an overt act of racketeering activity and an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Oh, yikes. Ugh. Let's drink water. Water break. Oh. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's not very good. That's my professional opinion. Oh, all right. On or about the 14th day of December, Mr. Schaefer, Mr. Still, Ms. Latham, and an unindicted co-conspirator, individual 2, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, whose identities are known to the grand jury, committed the felony offense of false statements and writings in violation of this code section in Fulton County, Georgia, by knowingly, willfully, and unlawfully making and using a false document titled, quote, Certificate of Votes of the 2020 Electors from Georgia, with knowledge that said document contained the false statement, quote, we, the undersigned, being duly elected and qualified electors for President and Vice President of the United States of America from the state of Georgia, do hereby certify the following, end quote. Said document being within the jurisdiction of the Office of the Secretary of State, and the Office of the Governor of Georgia departments and agencies of state government. This was an act of racketeering activity and an overt act in furtherance. On or about the 14th day, Act 82. On or about the 14th day of December, Mr. Schaefer, Mr. Still, Ms. Latham, unindicted co-conspirators 2, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, whose identities are known to the grand jury, attempted to commit felony offense of filing false documents, violation of this code section in Fulton County, Georgia, by placing in the United States mail a document titled, quote, Certificate of the Votes of the 2020 Electors from Georgia, addressed to the Chief Judge, U.S. District Court, Northern District of Georgia. This address here in Atlanta, Georgia, with the intent to knowingly file, enter, and record said document in a court of the United States, having reason to know that said document contained a materially false statement, quote, we, the undersigned, being duly elected and qualified electors for the President and Vice President of the United States of America from the state of Georgia, do hereby certify the following, end quote. This was an act of racketeering, an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. All right, one moment, please. I need to switch my batteries around. Okay, here we go. Oh, thank you. Very good. We're back. Here we go. Again, I would remind everyone, please be kind for my moderators. They're working so hard tonight. Thank you for your efforts, everyone. Appreciate that. And we just finished Act 82. So let's go on. Act 83. Whew. All right. On or about the 14th day of December 2020, Mr. Schaefer and Mr. Still committed a felony offense of forgery in the first degree in violation of this code section in Fulton County, Georgia, with the intent to defraud, knowingly making a document titled, quote, regarding notice of filing of electoral college vacancy, end quote. Whoa. A writing other than a check in such manner that the writing as made purports to have been made by the authority of the duly elected and qualified presidential electors from the state of Georgia who did not give such authority and uttered and delivered said document to the Archivist of the United States. This was an act of racketeering. Act 84, on or about the 14th day, Mr. Schaefer, Mr. Still, committed the felony offense of false statements and writings in violation of this code section in Fulton County, Georgia, by knowingly, willfully, and unlawfully making and using a false document titled, quote, RE, Notice of Filing Electoral College Vacancy, end quote, with the knowledge that said document contained false statements. Mr. Schaefer was chairman of the 2020 Georgia Electoral College meeting, and Mr. Still was the secretary of the 2020 Electoral College meeting. Said document being within the jurisdiction of the Office of Georgia, Secretary of State, and the Office of the Governor of Georgia, departments and agencies of state government. This was an overt act of racketeering and an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Okay, here we go. 85, on or about the 14th of December 2020, Mr. Schaefer instructed unindicted co-conspirator individual 15, whose identity is known to the grand jury, to deliver to the Office of the Governor of Georgia a document signed by Mr. Schaefer and Mr. Still, titled regarding Notice of Filling of Electoral College Vacancy. The document contained multiple false statements. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 86, on or about the 14th day of December 2020, unindicted co-conspirator individual 4, whose identity is known to the grand jury, sent an email to Mr. Roman. Unidentified co-conspirator 7, whose identity is known to the grand jury and others, that stated, quote, all votes cast, paperwork complete, being mailed now. Ran pretty smoothly, end quote, in reference to the December 14th meeting of Trump presidential elector nominees in Fulton County, Georgia. This was an overt act in furtherance of a conspiracy. Okay, here we go. Mike, I'm afraid if I have any more water. I'm pretty well hydrated. Oh my goodness. Yep, we're getting there. We're getting there, everybody. We're getting there. All right, Act 87, on or about the 14th day of December of 2020, Mr. Lee attempted to commit a felony offense of influencing witnesses in violation of this code section in Fulton County, Georgia, by traveling to the home of Ruby Freeman, a Fulton County, Georgia election worker, and speaking to her neighbor, and with intent to knowingly engage in misleading conduct towards Miss Freeman by purporting to offer her help and with intent to influence her testimony in official proceeding in Fulton County, Georgia. Concerning events at the State Farm Arena on November 3rd, presidential election in Georgia. This was an overt act of racketeering for purposes of this section of the code, an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 88, on or about the 15th day, Mr. Lee attempted to commit a felony offense of influencing witnesses in Fulton County, Georgia by traveling to the home of Miss Freeman, a Fulton County, Georgia election worker, knocking on her door with intent of knowingly engaging in misleading conduct towards Miss Freeman by purporting to offer her help and with intent to influence her testimony in an official proceeding in Fulton County, Georgia, concerning events in the State Farm Arena on November 3rd of 2020. Presidential election in Georgia. This was an act of racketeering. Act 89, on or between the 15th day of December and the 4th day of January, Mr. Lee solicited Mr. Ford, an individual associated with the organization of Black Voices for Trump, to assist with his effort to speak to Ruby Freeman, a Fulton County, Georgia election worker. Mr. Lee stated to Mr. Floyd that Freeman was afraid to talk to Mr. Lee because he was a white man. These are overt acts in furtherance of a conspiracy. Oh, yikes. On or about the 18th day of December of 2020, Mr. Trump met with Mr. Giuliani and Ms. Powell, unindicted co-conspirator individual 20, whose identity is known to the grand jury and others at the White House. The individual present at the meeting discussed certain strategies and theories intended to influence the outcome of the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election, including seizing voting equipment and appointing Ms. Powell as special counsel with broad authority to investigate allegations of voter fraud in Georgia and elsewhere. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Oh, hinky. Yeah. Absolutely. All right, here we go. On or about the 21st day, December of 2020, Ms. Powell sent an email to Chief Operations Officer of Sullivan Strickler LLC and instructed him that she and unindicted co-conspirator individuals 6 and 21 and 22, whose identity are known to the grand jury, were to immediately, quote, receive a copy of all data, end quote, obtained by Sullivan Strickland LLC from Dominion Voting Systems Equipment in Michigan. This was another overt act. Act 92. On or about the 22nd day of December, Mr. Meadows traveled to Cobb County Civic Center in Cobb County, Georgia, attempted to observe the signature match audit being performed there by law enforcement officers from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and the Office of the Georgia Secretary of State. Despite the fact that the audit process was not open to the public, while present at the center, Mr. Meadows spoke to the Georgia Deputy Secretary of State. This person, Office of the Georgia Secretary of State, Chief Investigator, this person, Georgia Bureau of Investigators, Special Agent, and this person, and others, who prevented Mr. Meadows from entering into the space where the audit was being conducted. That's another overt act. So we've got Act 93. On or about the 23rd day, Mr. Trump placed a telephone call to the Office of the Georgia Secretary of State, Chief Investigator, Francis Watson, that had been previously arranged by Mr. Meadows. During the phone call, Mr. Trump falsely stated that he had won the November 3rd presidential election in Georgia by hundreds of thousands of votes, and stated to Watson that, quote, when the right answer comes, you'll be praised. This was an overt act. Act 94. On or about the 23rd of December of 2020, Mr. Eastman sent an email to Mr. Cheesebro and unindicted co-conspirator individual 3, whose identity is known to the grand jury, with the subject, quote, forward draft 2 with edits. In the email, Mr. Eastman attached a memorandum titled, quote, privileged and confidential, December 23rd memo on January 6th scenario docs, and stated, as for hearings, I think both are unnecessary. The fact that we have multiple slates of electors demonstrates the uncertainty of either. That should be enough. And I agree with Ken that the Judicial Committee hearings on the constitutionality of the Electoral Count Act could invite counter views that we do not believe should constrain Pence or Grassley. What? Okay. Taking a moment. In exercise of power that they have under the 12th Amendment, better for them just to act boldly and be challenged, since the challenge would likely lead to the court denying review on non-justiciable political question grounds, end quote. Whoa. Oh, yikes. Yeah. Oh, there it is. Oh my goodness. Oh, all right, here we go. Let's keep it moving. Oh, yikes. That's uncomfortable. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Whew. All right. On or about the 24th day, so it's Christmas Day. Mr. Trump, for those that celebrate Christmas Day, Mr. Trump placed a telephone call to the Speaker of the Arizona House of Representatives, Rusty Bowers, for the purpose of soliciting, requesting, and importuning Bowers to unlawfully appoint presidential electors from Arizona. During the call, Bowers stated to Trump, quote, I voted for you, I work for you, I campaign for you, I just won't do anything illegal for you, end quote. That's a wise man. Okay. The telephone call was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Please, oops. Yeah, we're just going... We're just going so fast here that I can't catch your questions. I'm so sorry. Okay, hold on. We're going back to number 94 real quick. We've got an email sent with a draft and a memorandum. They're just talking about we don't need hearings because they don't want to put any constraints on Pence or Grassley. Now, the implication is, of course, now that Senator Grassley is involved in this. That's the implication. All right, back into it. Oh, shoot. What number was I on now? Oh, it's getting late. It's getting late, everybody. We're going to make it through. Yeah. 95. All right, thanks. Right. I voted for you. Right. This telephone call was an overt act. Got it. Oh, all right. Act 96. On or about the 27th, Mr. Meadows sent a text message to the office of the Georgia Secretary of State, Chief Investigator Francis Watson. The stated in part, quote, "Is there a way to speed up Fulton County signature verification in order to have results before January 6th if the Trump campaign assists financially?" Whoa. Another overt act. Act 97. 27th day of December, Mr. Trump solicited acting U.S. Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen and acting U.S. acting United States Deputy Attorney General Richard Donahue to make false statements by stating, quote, "Just say that the election was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressman," end quote. Act 98. On or about the 28th day, Mr. Clark attempted to commit a felony offense of false statements and writings in violation of this code section, Fulton County, Georgia, by knowingly and willfully making a false writing and document knowing the same to contain false statements that the United States Department of Justice had, quote, "identified significant concerns that may have impacted the outcome of the election in multiple states, including the state of Georgia," end quote, and statement being within the jurisdiction of the Office of Georgia Secretary of State and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation departments and agencies of state government and the county and city law enforcement agencies. Whew. On or about the 28th day, Mr. Clark sent an email to acting United States Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen and acting United States Deputy Attorney General Richard Donahue and requested authorization to send said false writing and document to Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, Speaker of the Georgia House of Representatives David Ralston, and President pro tempore of Georgia Senate Butch Miller, which constitutes a substantial step, which is one of the elements required, towards the commission of false statements and writings. This was an act of racketeering under this section of the code. Okay, we're coming down to the final few acts here. We're almost done with the acts. Ugh, goodness, it's a lot. It's a lot of acts. Yeah, worst bedtime story ever. True. Very true. You are correct. Worst one ever. Oh, all right. On or about the 28th day of December 2020, Mr. Clark solicited acting U.S. Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen and acting United States Deputy Attorney General Richard Donahue to sign and send a document that falsely stated that the United States Department of Justice had, quote, identified significant concerns that may have impacted the outcome of the election in multiple states, including the state of Georgia, to Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, Speaker of the Georgia House of Representatives David Ralston, and President pro tempore of Georgia Senate Butch Miller. Another act, Act 100, Act 100. On the 30th day of December, Mr. Trump caused to be tweeted from the Twitter account at Real Donald Trump, quote, hearings from Atlanta on the Georgia election overturn now being broadcast. Check it out here and many more. The governor should resign from office. Whoa. And he's an obstructionist who refuses to admit that we won Georgia big, also won on other swing states, end quote. Act 101. On the 30th day of December, Mr. Trump caused to be tweeted from the Twitter account at Real Donald Trump, hearings from Atlanta on Georgia election overturn, now to be broadcast here and here. This was another overt act. Act 102. On or about the 30th day of December, Giuliani, Smith III, Chile, committed felony offense of solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer in violation of this section of the code in Fulton County, Georgia, by soliciting, requesting, and importuning certain public officers, then serving as elected members of the Georgia Senate, and present at Senate Judiciary Subcommittee meetings, including unindicted co-conspirator Individual 8, whose identity is known to the grand jury. Senators Brandon Beach, Bill Heath, William Ligon, Michael Rhett, and Blake Tillery to engage in conduct constituting the felony offense of violation of oath of public office by unlawfully appointing presidential electors from the state of Georgia in willful and intentional violation of terms of the oath of said persons as prescribed by law, with intent that said persons engage in that conduct. That's another overt act. Whew, goodness. Here we go. We're getting there. Yep. It really is felonious. It really is. If nothing else, it seems felonious. Yeah, RICO's just one charge. It's a lot of acts, though. All right, here we go. Act 103. On or about the 30th of December, Mr. Giuliani committed the felony offense of false statements and writings in violation of this code in Fulton County, Georgia, by knowingly, willfully, and unlawfully making at least one of the following false statements, representations to a member of the Georgia Senate present at the Senate Judicial Subcommittee meeting. 1, that Fulton County election workers fraudulently counted certain ballots as many as 5 times at the State Farm Arena November 3rd. That 2,560 felons voted illegally in the November 3rd presidential election in Georgia, and that 10,315 dead people voted in November 3rd, the presidential election in Georgia. Said statements being within the jurisdiction of the Office of the Georgia Secretary of State and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, departments and agencies of state government, and county and city law enforcement agencies. This was an act of racketeering activity under this section of the code and an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 104. On or about the 30th of December, Mr. Smith III committed a felony offense of false statements in writing in violation of this code section, Fulton County, Georgia, knowingly, willfully, and unlawfully making at least one of the following false statements and representations to members of the Georgia Senate present at the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee meeting. Number 1, that Georgia Secretary of State General Counsel Ryan Germany stated that his office had sent letters to 8,000 people who voted illegally in the November 3rd presidential election and told them not to vote in the January 5th runoff election. Ooh, that's not good. Don't do that. Number 2, that the Georgia Secretary of State admitted, quote, that they had a 90% accuracy rate, end quote, in November 3rd of 2020 presidential election, and that, quote, there's still a 10% margin that's not accurate, end quote. Said statements being within the jurisdiction of the Office of the Georgia Secretary of State and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, departments and agencies of state government, and county and city law enforcement agencies. This was an act of racketeering in violation of this code section. Oh my goodness. Here we go. All right, Act 105. On or about the 30th day of December, Mr. Cheeley committed a felony offense, false statements and writings, violation of this code section in Fulton County, Georgia, by knowingly, willfully, and unlawfully making at least one of the following false statements, representations to the members of the Georgia Senate present at the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee meeting. Number 1. I'm just checking here. Yep. That poll watchers and media at State Farm Arena were told late in the evening of November 3rd that the vote count was being suspended until the next morning and to go home of, quote, a major water main break. It's interesting. Number 2, that Fulton County, technical moment here. There we go. That Fulton County election workers at the State Farm Arena, quote, voted the same ballots over and over again on November 3rd. Said statements being within the jurisdiction of the Office of the Georgia Secretary of State and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, departments and agencies of state government and county and city law enforcement agencies. This was an act of racketeering under this section of the code, overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 106, on the 30th day of December, Mr. Trump caused to be tweeted from the Twitter account @RealDonaldTrump, quote, we now have far more votes than needed to flip Georgia in the presidential rate. Wow. In the presidential race, massive voter fraud took place. Thank you to the Georgia legislature for today's revealing meeting. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 107. On or about the 31st day of December, Ms. Ellis wrote a memorandum titled Memorandum Regarding Constitutional Analysis of the Vice President's Authority for January 6th Electoral College Vote Count. That's a long name for a memo. I'm just going to take a minute and just pause and acknowledge that. To Mr. Trump, The memorandum outlined a strategy for disrupting and delaying the joint session of Congress on January 6th, the day prescribed by law for counting votes cast by the duly elected, qualified presidential electors from Georgia and the other states, and stated, quote, the vice president should therefore not open any of the votes from 6 states, including Georgia, that were falsely characterized as having, quote, electoral delegates in dispute, end quote. This was an overt act in furtherance. All right, last couple of charges here, or acts. Last couple of acts under the RICO. Yep. On or about the 31st day of December. Hold on, technical problems. One moment, please. Thank you. All right. On the 31st day of December, Mr. Trump, Mr. Eastman committed a felony offense of filing false documents in violations of this code section in Fulton County, Georgia, by knowingly filing a document titled Verified Complaint for Emergency Injunctive and Declaratory Relief. Oh, here we go. This is the lawsuit that they filed in the matter of Trump v. Kemp. And this is a case file in the United States District Court for the Northern District of Georgia, a court of the United States having reason to know that said document contained at least one of the following materially false elements. So this is what happens when you knowingly file false information. Number 1, that as many as 2,506 felons with an uncompleted sentence voted illegally in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia. Number 2, that at least 66,247 underage people voted illegally in the November election. Number 3, that at least 2,423 individuals voted illegally in the November 3rd presidential election in Georgia, who were not listed in the state's record as having been registered to vote. Number 4, that at least 1,043 individuals voted illegally in the November 3rd presidential election, quote, who had illegally registered to vote under using a postal code box as their habitation. Number 5, that as many as 10,315 or more dead people voted in November 3rd, the presidential election in Georgia. And number 6, that deliberate misinformation was used to instruct Republican poll watchers and members of the press to leave the premises for the night at approximately 10 p.m. on November 3rd at the State Farm Arena in Fulton County, Georgia. Earlier the same day, Mr. Eastman sent an email to attorneys associated with the Trump campaign admitting his knowledge that at least some of the allegations in the verified complaint were not accurate. This filing was an act of racketeering activity under this section of the code and an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 109. On or about the first day of January, Mr. Cheeseborough sent an email to Mr. Eastman, an unindicted co-conspirator, Individual 3, whose identity is known to the grand jury. In an email, Mr. Cheeseborough outlined a strategy for disrupting and delaying the joint session of Congress on January 6th, the day prescribed by law for counting votes cast by duly elected and qualified presidential electors from Georgia and other states. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. We're getting there. Here we go. Last page of acts. Nope, I lied. Sorry. We're getting close, though. We're getting close. Act 110, 111, 112. We're getting very close. All right. On or about the second day of January of 2021, Mr. Hall, a Georgia bail bondsman, placed a telephone call to Mr. Clark, discussed the November 3rd presidential election in Georgia. The telephone call was 63 minutes in duration. That's another overt act. Act 111. On or about the second day of January, Mr. Clark solicited acting United States Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen and acting United States Deputy Attorney General Richard Donahue to sign and send a document that falsely stated that the United States Department of Justice had, quote, identified significant concerns that may have impacted the outcome of the election in multiple states, including the state of Georgia, end quote, to Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, Speaker of the Georgia House of Representatives David Ralston, and the President pro tempore of Georgia Senate Butch Miller. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Act 112. On or about the second day of January, Mr. Trump, Mr. Meadows committed the felony of solicitation of violation of oath of a public officer in violation of this section of the code in Fulton County, Georgia, by unlawfully soliciting, requesting, and importuning Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, a public officer, to engage in conduct constituting the felony offense of violation of oath of public office by unlawfully altering, unlawfully adjusting, and otherwise unlawfully influencing the certified returns for presidential electors for the November 3rd presidential election in Georgia, in willful and intentional violation of the terms of the oath and said person as prescribed by law, with intent that said person engage in said conduct. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. All right, let me just peek. I feel like I've let everybody down by misstating how many acts we have. Uh-oh. Wait, now I'm uncomfortable saying how wrong I was. That's all right. We'll make it through. Oh, I love this for them. Yes, we're getting there. We're getting there, though. Oh, you're welcome. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, numbers are just a number. Maybe it's better to not put a number on, on specific numbers. Okay, here we go. All right, Act 113. On or about the second day of January, Mr. Trump committed the felony offense of false statements and writings in violation of this code section in Fulton County, Georgia, by knowingly, willfully, and unlawfully making at least one of the following false statements and representations to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, Georgia Deputy Secretary of State Jordan, this guy, and Georgia Secretary of State General Counsel Ryan Germany. Number one, that anywhere from 250,000 to 300,000 ballots were dropped mysteriously into the rolls in the November 3rd presidential election. That thousands of people attempted to vote in the November 3rd presidential election in Georgia and were told they could not because the ballot had already been cast in their name. Ooh. Number three, that 4,502 people voted in the presidential election in Georgia who were not on the voter registration list. Number four, 904 people voted in the election in Georgia who were registered at an address that was a post office box. That Ruby Freeman was a professional vote scammer and known political operative. That Ms. Freeman, her daughter, and others were responsible for fraudulently awarding at least 18,000 ballots to President Biden and State Farm Arena in November 3rd presidential election in Georgia. That close to 5,000 dead people voted in November 3rd election. That 139% of people voted in the presidential election. 139%. Ooh, that's Detroit. 200,000 more votes were recorded than the number of people who voted in Pennsylvania. That thousands of dead people voted in November in Michigan. And that Miss Freeman stuffed the ballot boxes. Oh, poor Miss Freeman. I feel bad for Miss Freeman. Yeah, I feel bad for her. My goodness. That hundreds of thousands of ballots had been dumped into Fulton County, another county adjacent to Fulton County, in the presidential election in Georgia. That he won the presidential election in Georgia by 400,000 votes. All these statements being within the jurisdiction. Here's the jurisdiction, and it is racketeering. I'm skipping through some of the similar language here. And an overt act in furtherance. Act 114. On or about the third day of January of 2021, Mr. Trump caused to be tweeted from the Twitter account @RealDonaldTrump, quote, I spoke to the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, yesterday in the Fulton County and voter fraud in Georgia. He was unwilling or unable to answer questions such as, quote, ballots under table scam, ballot destruction, out-of-state voters, dead voters, and more. He has no clue, end quote. That's another overt act. Okay, this one should go quick here. All right, we're going to do this one rapid fire. Act 115. On or about the third day of January, Mr. Lee, Mr. Floyd, and Mr. Cuddy placed multiple telephone calls and sent text messages to each other and other individuals involved in the conspiracy. Included the following. 7:48. Telephone call to Miss Freeman. 7:49. Telephone call to Miss Freeman. 7:49. Telephone call to Mr. Cuddy. 7:53. Text message to Miss Freeman. 8:03. Telephone call to Mr. Floyd. 8:11. Floyd called co-conspirator 23. 8:18, another phone call to Mr. Lee. 8:48, Floyd to Cuddy. 9:16, Floyd to Cuddy again. 9:33, Floyd to Cuddy. 9:50, Floyd to Cuddy. Oh, sorry, my bad, Floyd to Lee. These were overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. Here we go. Setting them up and we're knocking them down. Here we go. On or about the 4th day of January of 2021, Mr. Cuddy, having been recruited by Mr. Floyd, traveled from Chicago, Illinois to Atlanta, Georgia, and caused a certain individual, whose identity is known to the grand jury, to pick her up from the train station in Fulton County, Georgia, for the purpose of attempting to contact Miss Freeman. Boy, poor Miss Freeman, my goodness. A Fulton County, Georgia election worker. This was an overt act in furtherance. Act 117. On or about the 4th day, Mr. Cuddy traveled to Miss Freeman's home in Cobb County, Georgia, attempted to contact her, but was unsuccessful. Mr. Cuddy spoke with Freeman's neighbor, falsely stated that she was a crisis manager attempting to help Freeman before leaving Freeman's home. Act 118. On or about the 4th of January, Mr. Cuddy, while in Fulton County, Georgia, placed a telephone call to Miss Freeman, stated Freeman was in danger. Cuddy stated she could, that would be Miss Cuddy. Miss Cuddy stated she could help Freeman and requested that Freeman meet with and speak to her that night at Cobb County Police Department precinct in Cobb County, Georgia. Ooh. Okay, Act 119. On or about the 4th day, Miss Cuddy traveled to a Cobb County Police Department precinct in Cobb County, Georgia, met with and spoke with Miss Freeman for approximately 1 hour. Mr. Floyd joined by telephone. Miss Cuddy and Mr. Floyd stated that Miss Freeman, that she needed protection. Whoa, she needed protection and purported to offer to help her. Oh dear. That again is uncomfortable situation. Act 120 and 121. Just peeking here. Just peeking. We're doing a peek. Oh, my printer started to get a little low on ink. We're still good. Yeah, that's pretty sad. Yep. All right, we're getting there. All right. On the, let me just double check here. Make sure everything is set up. It is the indictment that never ends, Diego. You are correct. You are absolutely correct. But we're going to get there. We're going to push forward. We're going to get her done. On or about the 4th of January, Mr. Lee, Mr. Floyd, Miss Cuddy committed the felony offenses of solicitation of false statements and writings, violation of this section of the code in Georgia by soliciting, requesting, or importuning Miss Freeman, a Fulton County, Georgia election worker, to engage in conduct constituting the felony offense of false statements in writing by knowingly and willfully making false statements and representations concerning events at the State Farm Arena on November 3rd during the presidential election, and statements, said statement and representation being within the jurisdiction of the Office of Georgia Secretary of State and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, departments and agencies of state government, and county and city law enforcement. This was an act of racketeering. Act 121. On or about the 4th day of January, Mr. Lee, Mr. Floyd, Miss Cuddy committed a felony offense of influencing witnesses. That's a big one. In Fulton County, Georgia, by knowingly and unlawfully engaging in misleading conduct towards Miss Freeman, a Fulton County, Georgia election worker, by stating that she needed protection and by purporting to offer her help with intent to influence her testimony in an official proceeding in Fulton County, Georgia, concerning events in the State Farm Arena on November 3rd, the presidential election. This was an act of racketeering activity and an overt act in furtherance. All right, so Act 122. On the 4th of January, Mr. Lee, Mr. Floyd, Miss Cuddy placed multiple telephone calls and sent text messages to each other and to other individuals involved in the conspiracy. They included 9:41, Mr. Lee to Mr. Floyd, 11:24, Floyd to Schaefer, 12:25, Lee to Floyd, 12:32, Lee to Floyd again, 8:10, Floyd to Schaefer, 10 o'clock, Floyd to Lee, 10:19, Floyd to Cuddy. 10:45, Cuddy to Floyd. 11:10, Cuddy to Floyd. 12:12, Cuddy to Floyd. I have to admit, the DC indictment at least has more interesting conversations on texts. I'm just going to say that. Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of planning going on. All right, here we go. Act 123, on or about the 4th of January, Mr. Eastman placed a telephone call to the Speaker of the Arizona House of Representatives, Mr. Bowers, and solicited, requested, and importuned Bowers to unlawfully appoint presidential electors from Arizona. During the telephone call, Bowers declined to comply with Eastman's request and stated that he would not risk violating his oath of office. The request was an overt act in furtherance. Act 124. On or about the 4th, Cheesebro sent an email to Eastman with the subject for draft 2 with edits. Included within the body of the email, another email Cheesebro previously sent to Giuliani with the subject privileged and confidential. Brief notes on President of the Senate strategy. In the email, Mr. Cheesebro outlined multiple strategies for delaying the joint session of Congress on January 6th, the day prescribed by law for counting votes cast by the duly elected and qualified presidential electors from Georgia and other states, and stated that the outcomes of any of these strategies would be preferable to allowing the Electoral Count Act to operate by its terms. Act 123. On the 4th day of January, Mr. Trump and Mr. Eastman met the Vice President, Mike Pence, Chief of Staff to the Vice President, Mark Short, and Counsel of the Vice President, Greg Jacob, in the Oval Office at the White House. During the meeting, Mr. Trump and Mr. Eastman argued to Pence that he could either reject electoral votes from certain states, delay the joint session of Congress on January 6th, the day prescribed by law for counting the votes cast votes cast by the duly elected and qualified presidential electors from Georgia and the other states for the purpose of allowing certain state legislatures to unlawfully appoint presidential electors in favor of Mr. Trump. During the meeting, Mr. Eastman admitted both options violated the Electoral Count Act. Well, that's an admission of guilt. This was another overt act. Act 126. I'm going to pause for a drink of water. One moment. Whew. Okay, here we go. Diving back in. Oh, we're going to get there. Just making sure I'm in frame here. Oh. All right, Act 126. On or about the 5th day of January, Miss Ellis wrote a memorandum titled Regarding Vice President Authority in Counting Electors pursuant to U.S. Constitution and 3 U.S. Code Section 5 and 15. Okay, and this is the section of the code that sets out the certificates that everyone was talking about, along with the Safe Harbor Clause. To an attorney associated with Mr. Trump, the memorandum outlined a strategy for disrupting and delaying the joint session of Congress on January 6th, the day prescribed by law, by counting the votes cast by the duly elected and qualified presidential electors from Georgia and the other states, and stated, quote, the vice president should begin alphabetically in order of the states and coming first to Arizona, not open the purported certification, but simply stop the count at the juncture. That's unsettling. My goodness. Whew, this was an overt act. It's not good. Act 127. We're just going to slice through this nice and quick here. Overt act, yeah. Lots of overt acts. All right, 5th of January, we've got Cheeley, we've got Lee, we've got Floyd, Cuddy, and Hall placing multiple telephone calls involved in the conspiracy. 11:32, Lee to Cuddy. 12:14, Floyd, Cuddy, Lee, and unidentified co-conspirator individual 23 participated in a 4-way telephone. Whoa, now we're kicking it up a notch. Number 3, 1219, Mr. Hall to Mr. Cheeley. 1234, Mr. Hall to Mr. Cheeley. 107, Cheeley to Mr. Hall. 109, Cheeley to Mr. Hall. 230, Cheeley to Mr. Floyd. 245, Floyd to Mr. Cheeley. 359, Cheeley to Mr. Hall. 442, Lee to Mr. Cheeley. 450, Lee to Mr. Floyd. 505, Lee to Mr. Floyd. Oh, and there's more. There's more. 719, Ms. Cuddy to Mr. Cheeley. 748, Cheeley to Cuddy. 827, Cheeley to Cuddy. 849, Cheeley to Lee. 918, Hall to Cheeley. Wow, these guys are calling each other a lot. 931, Cuddy to Cheeley. 1014, Cheeley to Lee. 1116, Cheeley to Cuddy. 1125, Hall to Cheeley. 1135, Cheeley, Cuddy, Hall, and that was a 3-way phone call. And then 1209, Cuddy to Cheeley. There you go, all over Acts. Act 128, on or about the 5th of January, Mr. Trump caused to be tweeted on the Twitter. The vice president has the power to reject fraudulently chosen electors, which is another overt act. Here we go. We got to be coming down. We're turning a corner. I can tell. I can just sense it in the air, right? We're turning the corner. Tweeted on the Twitter. Yep. Tweeted on the Twitter. Here we go. Act 129. On or about the 5th day of January, Mr. Eastman met with the Chief of Staff to the Vice President, Mark Short, and the counsel to the Vice President, Greg Jacob, for the purpose of requesting the Vice President, Mike Pence, reject slates of presidential electors from Georgia and certain other states during the joint session of Congress on January 6th, the day prescribed by law for the votes to be cast for the electors. All right, this was another overt act. I'm skipping now. All right, we're skipping. Act 30, 130, on the 5th, Mr. Trump met with Vice President Mike Pence in the Oval Office at the White House. During the meeting, Mr. Trump stated that Pence had the power to decertify the presidential election results, that people cheated, and that Pence wanted to, quote, play by Marquis of Queensberry rules. What? What? Moment. Okay. When Pence stated that it was his duty to support and defend the Constitution, and that only Congress has the power to decide to reject slates of presidential electors, Mr. Trump stated that Pence was naive and implied that he lacked courage. And he stated that Pence was doing a great disservice. This was another overt act. Oh my goodness. Act 131. On or about the 5th of January, Mr. Trump placed a telephone call to Vice President Pence. During the call, Mr. Trump and Mr. Eastman attempted to persuade Pence to reject slates of presidential electors or return slates of presidential electors to state legislatures. Act 131. On the 5th, Mr. Trump placed a second telephone call to Mr. Pence, or Vice President Pence. During the telephone call, Mr. Trump asked Pence if he received a copy of the letter from the group of Pennsylvania legislatures urging Congress to return the state's electoral college votes, and stated to Pence, quote, "You got to be tough tomorrow," end quote. This was an overt act. Just so you know, this is my interpretive reading. This is most certainly not a violation of any picket line going on right now. Act 133. On the 5th of January, Mr. Trump issued a statement through the Trump campaign that falsely stated, quote, "The Vice President and I are in total agreement that Vice President has the power to act. Our Vice President has several options under the U.S. Constitution. He can decertify the results or send them back to the states for change and certification. He can also decertify the illegal and corrupt results and send them to the House of Representatives for the one vote for one state tabulation." That's another act. And here we go. On or about the 6th of January, Ms. Latham placed a telephone call to Mr. Hall. Several hours later, Mr. Hall placed a call back to Ms. Latham. During at least one of the phone calls, they discussed Mr. Hall's request to assist with the unlawful breach of election equipment at the Coffee County Board of Elections of Registration Office in Coffee County, Georgia. Act 135. On the 6th, Mr. Trump appeared and spoke at a rally at the Ellipse in Washington, D.C. During the rally, Mr. Trump made false statements concerning fraud in the November 3rd presidential election in Georgia, solicited Vice President Mike Pence to disrupt and delay the joint sessions of Congress on January 6th, the day prescribed by law, blah, blah, blah. This was an overt act in furtherance. Act 136. On or about the 6th day of January, Mr. Giuliani appeared and spoke at the rally on the Ellipse in Washington, D.C. During the rally, Mr. Giuliani made false statements concerning fraud in the November 3rd presidential election in Georgia, solicited Vice President Mike Pence to disrupt and delay the joint session of Congress on January 6th, day prescribed by law for counting the votes. Act 137. On the 6th of January, Mr. Eastman appeared and spoke at a rally on the Ellipse. During the rally, Mr. Eastman made false statements concerning fraud on the election and also solicited the vice president to disrupt and delay the joint session. This was another overt act. And Act 138, on or about the 6th of January of 2000, and just checking my temperature here. I think the thing with the RICO, we're getting there. The thing about the RICO is you just need a couple of criminal acts. You don't have to prove every single possible act beyond a reasonable doubt. You just need a couple of criminal acts, and then you're on your way. Yeah, tweeted from the Twitter. Oh, of course, Molly. Oh, I'm happy to help. Please center the text. How bad is it? Is it really bad? There we go. How's that? Yes, this is Georgia. Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely. Don't make my RICO eyes blue. Oh my goodness. You guys always say the funniest things. All right, here we go. Back into it. On or about the 6th, Mr. Trump caused to be tweeted from the Twitter. If Vice President Mike Pence comes through for us, we will win the presidency. Many states want to decertify the mistakes they made in certifying incorrect and even fraudulent numbers in the process, not approved by their state legislature, which it must be. Mike can send it back. Another act, Act 39. On or about the 6th, Mr. Trump caused to be tweeted from the Twitter. States want to correct their votes, which they now know are based on irregularities and fraud, plus corrupt process, never received legislative approval. All Mike Pence has to do is send it back to the states, and we win. Do it, Mike. This is a time for extreme courage. Another act, Act 140. On or about the 6th, Mr. Trump placed a telephone call to Mr. Vice President Pence, and solicited him to disrupt and delay the joint session of Congress. The day prescribed, blah, blah, blah. When Pence refused, Mr. Trump stated Pence would, quote, "Whoa, go down as a wimp." I haven't seen that quote before. Oh, that's so mean. Oh, my goodness. Oh, and that Pence was not protecting the United States. This was an overact in furtherance. This is awful. That's so mean. That's just mean. That's just rude. All right. This RICO. Oh, vicious. Pence, you're such a wimp. I know, right? Oh, all right. Here we go. Act 141. The 6th, Mr. Eastman sent an email to the council to the vice president, Greg Jacob, and stated, quote, "The Senate and House have both violated the Electoral Count Act this evening. They debate." Wow, that's so wrong. That's such a wrong statement. I couldn't let that go. They debated the Arizona objections for more than 2 hours, a violation of 3 U.S.C. 17, and the VP allowed further debate or statements by leadership after the question had been voted upon. And they had done the debate upon a motion approved by the VP in violation of the requirement of this again, and after the vote in separate houses, they shall immediately again meet. So now that the precedent has been set for the Electoral Count Act is not quite so sacrosanct as was previously claimed. Is he like an evil villain I'm sorry, that just burst out of me. I'm sorry about that. I implore you to consider one more relatively minor violation and adjourn for 10 days to allow the legislatures to finish their investigations, as well as to allow a full forensic audit of the massive amount of illegal activity that had occurred here. If none of that moves the needle, at least a good portion of the 75 million people who supported President Trump will have seen a process that allowed the illegality to be aired. John. What? That is just a lot. I know. Oh my goodness. All right. We're getting a little loopy. Sorry about that. I need to rein in the loopiness. Oh my goodness. All right, let's do it. Here we go. Act 142. On or about the 7th day, Ms. Latham sent a text message to the Chief Operations Officer of Sullivan Strickler, LLC, with an address for the Douglas Municipal Airport in Coffee County, Georgia, to coordinate picking up Mr. Hall from the airport and driving him to the Coffee County Board of Elections and Registration Office for the purpose of assisting with the unlawful breach of the election equipment at the Coffee County Board of Elections and Registration Office. This was an act of racketeering and furtherance. On the 7th day of January, Mr. Hall, an unindicted co-conspirator, Individual 24, whose identity is known to the grand jury, flew from DeKalb Peachtree Airport in DeKalb County, Georgia, to Douglas Municipal Airport in Coffee County, Georgia, for the purpose of assisting with the unlawful breach of election equipment at the Coffee County Board of Election and Registration Office. This was an act of racketeering activity in furtherance of the conspiracy. All right, here we go. We're almost there. I mean, we're on the 7th day of January, right? On or about the 7th day of January, Ms. Powell, Ms. Latham, Mr. Hall, Ms. Hampton committed the felony offense of interference with primaries and elections, in Coffee County, Georgia, by willfully and unlawfully tampering with electronic ballot markers and tabulating machines. Whoa, that's pretty heavy duty. In Coffee County, Georgia. Act 145. On or about the 7th of January, Ms. Powell, Ms. Latham, Mr. Hall, Ms. Hampton committed the felony offense of unlawful possession of ballots in violation of this code section, Coffee County, Georgia, by causing certain members of the conspiracy who were not officers charged by law with the care of ballots and who were not persons entrusted by any such officer with the care of ballots for a purpose required by law to possess official ballots outside of the polling place in Coffee County, Georgia. Oh, that's not good. Act 146. On the 7th, Ms. Powell, Ms. Latham, Mr. Hall, Ms. Hampton committed felony offense, computer theft, violation of this code section by using a computer with knowledge that such use was without authority and with intention of taking and appropriating information, data, and software, the property of Dominion Voting Systems Corporate in Coffee County, Georgia. Another act of racketeering. Act 147, 7th day of January, Ms. Powell, Ms. Latham, Mr. Hall, Ms. Hampton committed the felony offense of computer trespass in Coffee County, Georgia, using a computer with knowledge that such use was without authority and with the intention of removing voter data. Removing voter data and the Dominion Voting System Corporation data from said computer. That's really bad. This was an act of racketeering. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize they were removing voter data. Yikes. There's the voter fraud, right? On or about the 7th of January, Ms. Powell, Ms. Latham, Mr. Hall, Ms. Hampton committed felony offense, computer invasion of privacy, by using the computer with the intention of examining personal voter data with the knowledge that the examination was without authority. Act 149, on or about the 6th of December. Wait, we're going back in time. We went back. Here we go. The 6th of December and the 7th day of January, Powell, Latham, Hall, Hampton committed a conspiracy to defraud the state in violation of this code section in Georgia by unlawfully conspiring and agreeing to commit theft of voter data. Whoa, that's huge. We haven't seen that one. Property, which was under the control of the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, a state officer in his official capacity. This was another racketeering activity. Wow, so we do have some voter theft going on. On the 9th day of January, the 10th of January, the 11th day, and the 13th, unindicted co-conspirator individual 25 unlawfully accessed certain data copied from the Dominion voting system equipment at the Coffee County Board of Elections and Registration Office by downloading said data from the server maintained by Sullivan Strickler LLC. Whoa! Downloading personal private data? Oh my goodness. Ugh, yikes. Act 151, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 18th, and 19th. Unindicted co-conspirator individual 26, whose identity is unknown to the grand jury, and unlawfully access certain data copied from Dominion voting systems equipment at this office again by downloading said data from the server maintained by this LLC. It was an act of racketeering again. Oh, this is bad. All right, here we go. 151, the 10th, the 12th, the 13th, the 25th of February, the 26th of February. Wow. Unindicted co-conspirator 27, whose identity is unknown to the grand jury, unlawfully accessed certain data copied by the Dominion voting systems equipment at the Coffee County Board of Elections and Registration Office in the Coffee County, Georgia, by downloading said data from a server maintained, again, by this LLC. 153. On or about the 13th of January, unindicted co-conspirator individual 28, whose identity is known to the grand jury, unlawfully accessed certain data copied from the Dominion voting systems equipment at the Board of Elections and Registration Office in Georgia by downloading said data from a server maintained by this LLC, another act of racketeering. Act 154, the 18th, Ms. Hampton allowed unindicted co-conspirators 25 and 29, whose identities are known to the grand jury, to access non-public areas of this office in this area of Georgia and facilitated their access to Dominion voting systems equipment. Wow, this was another overt act. Oh my goodness. These are indictments. These are not allegations. These are indictments that have been proven to a level of probable cause by a grand jury. So we're not at an accusation, we're at an indictment. We are not at proof beyond a reasonable doubt, which is what you need in a trial. We are at probable cause. Innocent until proven guilty? Absolutely. Absolutely. As it should be. All right. Now we've got Act 155, unindicted co-conspirator 28. Identity is known to the grand jury, sent an email to this officer of the LLC directing him to transmit all data copied from the Dominion voting system to unindicted co-conspirator individual 30, whose identity is known to the grand jury, an attorney associated with Ms. Powell in the Trump campaign. Again, we've got another racketeering count. Act 156, on or about the 17th of September, Mr. Trump committed a felony offense, solicitation, a violation of oath of a public officer in Fulton County, Georgia, by unlawfully soliciting, requesting, and importuning Georgia Secretary of State Brad, a public official, to engage in conduct constituting a felony offense. By unlawfully decertifying the election or whatever the correct legal remedy is and announce the true winner, end quote, in willful and intentional violation of terms of the oath of the said person as prescribed. We've got another overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. And 157, on the 17th of September, Mr. Trump committed the felony offense of false statements and writings by knowingly, willfully, and unlawfully making the following false statement and representations to Georgia Secretary of State Brad. Number 1, as stated to you previously, the number of false and or irregular votes is far greater than needed to change the Georgia election result, end quote. And again, this is a jurisdictional issue and it's set out as a racketeering activity. Oh my goodness. All right, 158, 159. On or about the 25th day of October of 2022, Mr. Schaefer committed the felony offense of false statements in writing in Fulton County by knowingly, willfully, unlawfully making at least one of the following false statements. One, that he attended and convened the December 14th meeting of Trump presidential elector nominees in Fulton County, but he did not call each of the individual members and notify them of the meeting or make any of the other preparations necessary for the meeting. Number two, that a court reporter was not present at the December 14th meeting of Trump presidential elector nominees in the Fulton County, Georgia. Again, this is a jurisdictional issue, and they're setting it out as a racketeering activity. Act 159. On the 7th day of May, Ms. Powell made at least one of the following statements. Number one, that she didn't have any role in really setting up efforts to access voting machines in Coffee County, Georgia, or Antrim County, Michigan. Number two, that she was aware that there was, quote, an effort by some people to get access to voting machines in Georgia, but that she did not, quote, know what happened with that and did not, quote, remember whether that was Rudy or some other folks. Oh, goodness. That's trouble for her. Act 160. On or about the first day of September, Miss Latham committed a felony offense of perjury. So this is pretty significant. In Houston County, by knowingly, willfully, unlawfully making at least one of the following false statements. During a deposition in the matter of Curling B. Raffensperger case out of the Northern District of Georgia. So this is during a deposition when you're under oath. Number one, that she was only present at the Coffee County Board of Elections registration office in Coffee County, Georgia for, quote, just a few minutes on January 7th. Number two, that she, quote, walked in the front part, end quote, of the Coffee County Board of Elections and registration office and, quote, didn't go into the office, end quote. That she had, quote, no idea if employees of Sullivan Strickler met Eric Cheney at the Coffee County Board Elections and registration office, January 7th. That she did not see Miss Hampton at the Coffee County Board of Elections and registration office, January 7th. That her only interaction with Mr. Hall at the office was meeting him, speaking to him outside of the office, and then leaving the office. That she did not see Mr. Hall speak to anyone other than herself. She didn't speak to anyone other than herself at the office on January 7th. That's interesting. And we've got jurisdiction, and these are set up as racketeering activities. She only talked to herself. That's okay then. Lying liars. Lying liars. So, again, this is the part where my printer starts to run out of ink because of the sheer quantity of this indictment. We'll still get there. Oh, thank you. Speak to myself. I do it all the time. It does, Diego. We're going to get through it, though. We're going to get through it. We're going to do this together. We're going to make it. Here we go. On or about the 15th of September, Mr. Cheeley committed the felony of perjury. So let's see what he said. That he was unaware of the December 14th meeting of Trump presidential elector nominees in Fulton County, Georgia, until after the meeting had already taken place. That he had no substantive conversations with anyone concerning the December 14th meeting of Trump presidential election nominees in Fulton County until after the meeting. And that he never suggested to anyone that Trump presidential elector nominees in Georgia should meet on December 14th. What? That only communication he had with Mr. Eastman concerning the presidential election was for the purpose of connecting Eastman to Georgia Senator Brandon Beach, an unindicted co-conspirator individual 8, whose identity is known to the grand jury, for possible legal representation. Number 5, that he never worked to connect Mr. Eastman and any Georgia legislatures other than Georgia Senator Brandon Beach, an unindicted co-conspirator individual 8, whose identity is known. We've got jurisdiction here, and again, we're setting it out as racketeering activity. The acts set forth were committed in furtherance of the conspiracy alleged above and of the same similar intents, results, accomplices, victims, and methods of commission otherwise were interrelated by distinguishing characteristics and were not isolated acts. Oh my goodness, we made it through count 1. We made it. Oh my gosh, we made it through count 1. Did we get it? Did we get count 1? Did we make it? We did. That was wild. That was wild. That was count one. That's all right. The next ones, these are all going to be going downhill. I mean, they're going to be quicker. Big attorneys get attorneys. Yeah, that was count one. That's all right, though. We're going to zip right through the rest of these counts. These are going to be real quick because they're only a paragraph each. But that count one had to set out all of these. I'm sorry, I'm redoing my power brick here. They had to set out all of these different acts for different options for the RICO charge. All right. Okay, here we go. This is it. This is the grand finale. The RICO Suave. Yeah, that's a long count one. It's true. Very true. So very many options. Yes, indeed. Indeed. Lots and lots of options. Let me get my fourth Red Bull. Oh my gosh, Raymond, you are just a hero. Oh, stay with me. All right, here we go. Let's dive on in. Oh, paralegal life, coming in with the corn. I'm so thankful for the corn. It keeps me going. Oh my gosh, yes. Wow, she did amazing. What about the pillow dude? I don't know. Where is the pillow dude? What's going on with him? Hillary, I don't know. She's probably like, what? What's happening? Oh, all right, here we go. Count two. Count two. That's all right. We're gonna go through this real quick now. Real quick. We're gonna get there. He's hiding. Why are some people anonymous? It just set out at the very beginning that we had up to 30 people that were anonymous. And typically when someone's not named, it's because they just didn't want to pull them in as a particular defendant. It could be that there was agreements that were made. So, you know, some kind of immunity perhaps given and so on. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. How many page counts? Well, we're on 72. Anonymous. Yeah. Great laughing attitude. Oh, thanks. Yeah, let's go. You're right. Let's go. Let us do. Here we go. And the grand jurors aforesaid, in the name and behalf of the citizens of Georgia, do charge and accuse Giuliani, Eastman, Ellis, Smith III with the offense of soliciting a violation of oath by public officer for the said accused individually and as persons concerned in the commission of a crime and together with unindicted co-conspirators in the county of Fulton in the state of Georgia on the 3rd day of December 2020, unlawfully solicited, requested, importuned certain public officials, officers with then serving as elected members of the Georgia Senate and present at the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee meeting, including unindicted co-conspirator individual 8. Oh, thank you. Whose identity is known to the grand jury. Senators, these guys here, I won't rename them, by unlawfully appointing presidential electors from the state of Georgia in willful and intentional violations of the terms of their oath of said persons as prescribed by law. And that takes us next to count 3. And the grand jurors aforesaid, in the name and behalf of Georgia, charge Giuliani with the offense of false statements and writings. And let's bump down here. This is from the Senate Judicial Committee. At least 96,600 mail-in ballots were counted in November of 2020 presidential election in Georgia, despite there being no record of those ballots having been returned to county elections office. So let's pause for a moment. Just look at that. So 96,600 mail-in ballots. He's being charged with making this statement because it was a false statement. So anyone saying that situation is rigged, let's just take a moment and look at this man that's just been charged with this crime. I'm just taking this as a teachable moment. Number 2, the Dominion voting systems machine used in the November presidential election in Antrim County, Michigan, mistakenly recorded 6,000 votes for President Biden when the votes were actually cast for Donald Trump. Statements are in the jurisdiction here, and the Secretary of State and the agencies, the state government, contrary to the laws of the state, the good order and peace and dignity thereof. Right. Now we've got count 4. The grand jurors and the above named, that wasn't even, it's getting late. There we go. Let's make that a little tidier. Citizens, let's see. We're charging Smith III with false statements and writings. Let's see what he said. And these were made during the Senate Judicial Subcommittee meeting. 2,506 felons voted illegally, so he's being charged with that false statement. 66,248 underage people illegally registered. He's being charged with that. At least 2,423 people voted that were not listed. There's another charge. 1,043 people voted. So each statement he made to that judicial subcommittee, he's being charged with as a false statement. 10,315 more dead people voted. And then Fulton County election workers ordered the poll watchers and the members to leave. All of these statements go against the law. So that's number 4. Number 5 here. And we've got Mr. Trump, solicitation of violation of oath of a public officer for the said accused on the 7th of December, unlawfully solicited, requested, and importuned Speaker of the Georgia House of Representatives, a public officer, to engage in conduct constituting a felony offense in violation of the oath by calling for a special session of the Georgia General Assembly for the purposes of unlawfully appointing presidential electors from the state of Georgia, willfully, intentionally violation of the terms of the oath of the said person. All right, so asking for that was a solicitation of an oath, of a violation of an oath. We've got Mr. Giuliani, Smith III, solicitation, violation of the oath again. This is on December 10th. Solicited, requested, importuned certain public officers then serving as elected members of the Georgia House of Representatives and present at the House Governmental Affairs Committee meeting, all of these people, to engage in conduct constituting a felony offense by unlawfully appointing presidential electors. So again, they're asking them to appoint these. My last battery pack. All right. Okay. I'm going to have to speed through this last little bit. My last battery pack is absolutely dying here. Hold on. I got one more. We're going to find an outlet. I think I've just gone through so much. Oh. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Yep, she's burning up. Okay, everybody, we're going to have to do, I have a charger. I've just been on for almost 7 hours, my phone. All right, here we go. We're going to go through, I'm going to summarize real quick, all right? We got to do this. Count 6, Giuliani, Smith, solicitation, violation of oath by public officer. All right, so we're talking again to the people. We're asking them for the fake electors. Count 7, we've got false statements by Mr. Giuliani here. And these are all the statements that he put in front of that House Governmental Affairs Committee. We're going to have a grand finale. Count 8, these guys impersonating public officials by saying that these fake electors were okay. Count 9, all of these guys again impersonating public officials. Again, this is the fake electors involved. Count 10, these guys here, forgery in the first. These were the certificates that they filed. Count 11, we've got more certificates as well, forgery. Count 12, I'm not going to make it, guys. Certificate of the votes. I'm going to have to come back to the beginning. I'm not going to make it. I got to accept defeat here. Hold on. I got to just accept defeat. We're going to just flip through, okay? I'm not going to make it. I'm running against the clock. 13, we've got false statements again, false writings. 14, criminal attempt to commit the filing of the false documents. 15, we've got another conspiracy to commit false filings. 16, forgery. 17, committing forgery. 18, false statements and writings. 19, committing forgery again. This takes us to 20, which is a criminal intent to influence a witness. 21, we've got another influencing of the witness. 22, false statements. 23, solicitation, violation of an oath. 24, we've got false statements again. 25, false statements. 26, false statements in writing. Oh, I'm trying. 27, we've got false documents that were submitted as well down here. All of these statements that were done again. 28, solicitation, violation of an oath again. 29, we've got false statements and writings. Again, this is involving the poll worker. We've got 30, conspiracy to commit the solicitation. 31, we've got influencing witnesses. 32, conspiracy to commit election fraud. 33, conspiracy to commit election fraud again. 34, look at this, my ink's even fading. Conspiracy for computer theft. 35, conspiracy to commit computer trespass. Let me see here. 36, conspiracy to commit computer invasion. 37, conspiracy to defraud the state. 38, solicitation of a violation of the public oath again. 39, false statements and writings. 40, false statements and writings again. And 41, perjury. We made it. Woo, we made it. Just a little bit of battery left. Sorry for the rush there. The printer ink, yeah, it's on its last leg. Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for that. I've got just a little bit of battery left. Sorry I had to rush through those last pieces there, but I didn't realize we had been going for 7 hours. So, oh, can we get the first 8 again? Oh, not tonight. Oh, you're welcome, everybody. You're absolutely welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight. How many acts? Too many. It was a lot. That was really a lot. What did we come up with? 150? Where were we? Let me double check. 150, 160. Looks like we were at 160. Oh, good night. Yes, yes. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I will be doing some posts on, 106. Oh my goodness. I will be doing some posts, kind of explaining things a little bit better as we go through it. You can go online. I had a wonderful person who gave me a specific link to it because, of course, I printed it out as soon as it became available. So I haven't really had time to look around to see what's available. So, oh, absolutely. You are welcome. Please post it. Oh, absolutely. Now, the other thing is I do have a Tube of You channel, and I post all of my lives up there just if anyone missed part of it or came in late or whatever. So you can always go and check. I know I ran out of ink. I know. But you can always go and look that up too, even though we really rushed the end. I probably will do one just all of the counts after the RICO count and just kind of clarify it again. But yeah, I'm up on the Tube of You. Oh, thank you so much. Yes, that's exactly right, Nancy. You got it. So you can go and check that out. I will be going into more details about everything, of course, but this was just kind of an opportunity to shake my tone. I will. I tell you, I've gone through so much ink. Oh, yes. Oh, my mods have been so amazing. You have all been fabulous. Thank you so much. But, yes, can I show the case number? Well, let me see. I'm literally swimming in paperwork right now. So let me see if I can find the beginning here. Here, we'll go here. We'll do this. There we go. There's the case number. Oh, yes. Using an iPad instead of paper. I have thought about that, and I tell you what, I've tried every possible route, and what I have found are the people that like to hang out really appreciate the paper, and it works. I'm very lucky because I have an excellent, very earth-friendly situation involving paper and ink, so it's all very responsibly handled. Oh, hello. You should probably mention that several members of the Supreme Court think RICO is too aggressive. Oh, no, I don't want to mention that. No. No, let's not talk about that. Oh, my goodness. Yes. Oh, my gosh. Yes, we'll have to. You should do a post on that. You should talk about the Supreme Court and RICO. You do great. You would set that up and knock that down really well. It'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting to see what happens here. But hopefully this was useful for people and, for everyone who's been hanging out with me all night. Oh, my goodness. Too aggressive. Oh, but it's been so fun to hang out with everybody that stayed with me this whole time. My goodness gracious. It's been a lot. It's been a lot. So, yes, I've just read through this. I will take more time and go through and explain things a little bit more as time goes on. But, again, I've got, oh my gosh, my poor moderators. Seriously, cakes for all the moderators. You're getting cake. I'm sending you cake. Somehow I'll send the cake. Yes, absolutely. Well, Jimbo, we'll see. We'll see. So far, nothing else has been dropped, so we will see. Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm glad I could help. Or ring bling. Yes. Or a cake shaped like a ring bling, right? That'd be fun. That would be so fun. Yes. Oh, yes. I know. It's been going on quite a while for all of the people that have been with me this whole time. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. You're just superstars. You are amazing, VC. Y'all are just amazing. Paralegal life. Oh my gosh. So yes, I will be posting this. Usually my longer YouTubes, this particular one, because we got cut off, but when they go for so long, it takes a while for them to upload. So it'll probably be up by probably tomorrow. It just takes a while for everything to get uploaded. Dorks United. Yes, of course. But yes, all of those, we will put them up. Yes, thank you so much to the mods. Thank you. Heroes, you're my heroes. How many acts? I think we hit, 160? I think that was about right. Yes, it's the same name as my TikTok here. So you can catch it there. And all of my long-winded rambles are all on there. Oh, yeah. I'm going to need to have that. 315,000. Oh my gosh. Thanks everybody for all the likes. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. It's been so fun. All right. Well, I've got to give my moderators a break. They've been working so hard. I'm so thankful, everybody. I will have this posted up as soon as I possibly can. And I will go through some more information and kind of clarify things. I know we rushed through at the end, but I was worried about my battery and I've still just got a sliver left. So I want to make sure. Oh, Rosie, oh my goodness. Yes. Good night. Thank you for coming. Diego. Yes. Thank you so much. Yes. Yeah, this is the closest I can give you right now. My whole area here is just flooded with paperwork. So sorry about that. But I will post on it. There you go. Thanks, Nancy. You got it. Come back tomorrow. I'm going to need a little bit of a break. Muchas gracias. Donata, you are so welcome. Yes, you have a great night too. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here with me. I really appreciate it. It's been a very interesting night. And again, for all of you that have been with me for this whole time, I'm so thankful. And for those of you that have just joined, great to see you. So take care, everybody. And I will be back again and we'll talk a bit more. So have a good night.